Yeah. So professor is director medical news Kawasaki Medical School. So now please enjoy the presentation. Professor. Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Moriya from Japan. Thank you very much for inviting me for such a big conference. It's a great honor for me to talk about the action of the Japanese Museum on pandemic era. The collaboration between Kawasaki Medical School and the University of Indonesia started in 2014 as the couple of people came to us, Sasanti and Rini. They came to us and worked together and discussed something for a while. There are 82 medical schools in Japan, and 31 is private. Kawasaki Medical School is one of the private medical schools located at Kurashiki City, Okayama Prefecture, which is a relative western part of Japan. Kurashiki City is a middle-sized city, and we have nearly 480,000 population, and nationally known as a sightseeing place such as historical town and Seto Inland Sea. Kawasaki Medical School history is it was established in 1970. The Kawasaki is the name of the founder, Tsukenobu Kawasaki, who was the surgeon and had a big hospital in the city, and he decided to make a medical school at his age of 60. And 1973, he established the Kawasaki Medical School Hospital, and 1981, completion of medical museum. The philosophy of establishment of Kawasaki Medical School is three, and one is liberal humanity. It's the most important thing for the medical doctors, we believe. And the second is the sound body, and third is a profound knowledge. We deliver good physician to the society, support national health and society welfare, and contribute to the development of medical science on the basis of education, research, and medical care. The Kawasaki Medical School is a private medical school that opened with 126 students in each year over a 6-year course in 1790. In addition, Kawasaki Education Institution include Kawasaki University of Medical Welfare, Kawasaki Medical College, Kawasaki Junior College of Rehabilitation, high school attached to the Kawasaki Medical School, and the Kawasaki Children's Center. All of these students came to Medical Museum to study. This picture is the overview of Kawasaki Gakuen University in 2021. The name is Kawasaki Education Institution. We have schools and 2 medical school hospitals, and more than 4,700 employees and around 6,000 students studied here. In 1790, the traditional medical course in Japan was based on the lectures that were research-oriented. This school used an integrated patient-oriented method for teaching. To help to achieve this, they used audiovisual materials initially. In 1981, to mark the 20th year since the foundation of the medical school, a new building was constructed at the Educational Museum, designed to be better way of presenting interactive learning opportunities for both undergraduate and postgraduate students. In addition to this was the opportunity to help to provide facilities for ongoing education of physicians. This is a map of Kawasaki Medical School and Kawasaki Medical School Hospital. This is a hospital building, and this is medical school. And the medical school museum is located here. To commemorate the 10th anniversary of the school's foundation, Medical Museum opened in 1981, when I was a fourth-year medical school student. It's a brown-colored 5-story building with clock tower and total area of more than 7,000 square meters. The Medical Museum is usually called as MM. It's open from Monday to Sunday. The closure day is a national holiday, and it opened 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. No charge for admission. A visit to group acceptance is possible. The collected materials focus on the exposition of modern medicine rather than on historical materials. So we try to prepare new things every time. Recently, we focus on and concentrate to make the simulation models for medical school students and staffs, and also for general public. These are examples of the simulation models for medical school students and staffs, and all are our handmade and our original. Students are able to instruct themselves by examining the exhibit specimens and solidify their understanding. Practicing physicians and medical staff are also welcome to visit the museum to further their medical education. It is also designed to propagate knowledge on medicine and healthcare to the general public. Second floor is called as Health Education Museum, open to the public. This attracts over 8,000 external visitors annually, including more than 100 groups. Exhibitions are divided into 4 categories, such as basic medicine, prevention, diseases, and the latest medicine care. It uses models, panels, and videotapes. Many of the models are interactive. There's also free access to computer-generated models. The auditorium was a seating capacity of 300, and it is used for conference and lectures. These are the examples of the workshop for children. The kids are writing and sketch the normal lung and tobacco lung. These are results. And lower 2 photos, we visit some places such as schools and public spaces and do the lecture or perform the workshop, such as this. Anatomical and pathological specimens are prepared using a number of different techniques: perspectives, plastination, and corrosion. The emphasis is on modern medicine rather than on historical items. Progressively, more and more materials is being presented as computer-based learning exercises. The fourth floor is for the independent learning of medical students. Anatomical organ specimens are mainly exhibited on this floor. It is Gross Pathology Museum, and they are produced using Kawasaki's own original methods. A total of 1,700 anatomical organ specimens are exhibited and are categorized and displayed in 16 booths. Most of our exhibits are our original and prepared by museum staffs. Currently, the number of medical museum staff is 12, including 2 MDs. He is the chairman and dean of Kawasaki Medical School, Professor Masao Fukunaga, and this is me. And other 2 people, the non-MDs, but they are museum curators. In 2009, we started Summer Kids Festival in Kawasaki. The course is 2 days. Each day, 100 children and their parents are coming. So total 400 people coming for 2 days. Lecture, hospital tour, and experience exhibit we prepared. The chances of being selected average 7 times or more. These are the examples of course in the afternoon. Cardiac resuscitation course, and endoscopic surgery course, and nursing course, and tour on medical museum course. According to the contribution for health education for general public, received Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology Award in 2019. Next, I'd like to talk about in pandemic era. Medical museum had been closed to the public, and the second floor has been utilized for the vaccination venue. And third floor was used for the classroom for first-year medical students. They all are living in a dormitory adjacent to the museum. Several events had been done as a remote museum. So medical museum has been closed to the public. Very unfortunately, we could not invite general public people for a long time. Still, we are closed. The second floor, it is their health education museum, but they are used for the vaccination venue. Third floor is used for the classroom for first-year medical school students. Summer event has been performed by online. We prepared YouTube movies and provide them. The participants access their site of the museum and take a look at their videos for a month. Several events has been done as a remote museum. The making of open apron for the elementary school students. Our original policy is seeing is better than hearing. To see is to believe. So, the best way is to visitors and experience the interactive exhibit. However, it may be necessary to prepare virtual contents at the current situation. For example, informative moving images and new technologies such as virtual reality will be adopted in the future. I hope we'll collaborate with your museum in some way in the near future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Our second presenter for the day is Ibu Dr. Chiwu. I will with the short curriculum vitae of Dr. Chiwu Musiana Yudaswati, Magister Humaniora. Dr. Chiwu graduated from the Library Science Universitas Indonesia in 1993, and then she received a magister program in library science and information also in Universitas Indonesia in 2002, and recently she achieved a doctoral program in communication science in Pajajaran University in 2020. Dr. Chiwu is an initiator in National Network of Higher Education Museum in Indonesia. She also a lecturer at the Faculty of Communication Science in Bhayangkara University. Also, she is a chairwoman in a non-governmental organization Komunitas Jelajah. So now it's time for us to listen the presentation from Ibu Dr. Jiwo. Please, the committee.
Is also an important public space for the community. So, like the other museum in the world, like right now, online activities in Indonesia Museum continue to increase, in particular to the creation of new digital communication channel in the wake of lockdown. So, based on that situation, I want to know about how museum in Indonesia carry out the role as a direct actor of social development beyond their educational role. And are museum in Indonesia more proactive in improving society life with the special consideration for marginalized group like a senior adult, disabled persons, special need, people with dementia, with schizophrenia, or people with mental health? And home museum in Indonesia use technology to communicate with their users. So to find the answer, I choose a qualitative study and choose a method, virtual ethnography for method, and media document level to data analysis. So my literature review for make this paper, unlike all others, the museum depends on the real thing and as the media of communication. So the image of thing that they are language of other media are surely used in the museum system. But this image must be considered as the objective with qualify and make more meaningful but nouns of the museum language, the real things themselves. So museum is not a simple communication system that can be described in terms of transmitter, medium, or receiver. It is rather a complex system. Often is a variety of transmitters, many media, and many widely different types of receiver. And it is the simplest statement. The primary communication system in the museum has its transmitter or source, the exhibitor, and as the media, the real things. So all component on the museum are influential in the process communicating message to the visitor, not only exhibition. Communication played a comprehensive role in the museum, and there was no aspect, even simple interaction that happened in museum that did not involve communication. Museum communication is a concept of managing modern museum using various disciplines approach to construct museum as a place that has value. So right now, digital technology can be considered as a valuable and innovative way to improve visitor engagement, like edutainment, interactivity, immersive experience, and narrative environment. So I divide my result of this research into a unit, one about museum contribution and the others about museum communication. So before we start with the results, so you can see the condition of the museum in Indonesia. So we have 558 museums, and during the pandemic, 287 museums were not operating. They're temporarily closed, and 271 museums utilizing various platform digital like Instagram, TikTok, blog, YouTube, and the others. But Instagram, most used by all of museum in Indonesia. We report 271 museum use Instagram, and Twitter only 50 but 15, only 15 that are active, and the other platform used by not higher than 20 museum. So in museum contribution, um, from the beginning in the year until October 2020, it was very quite difficult to find a museum that carry out health socialization. So less than 20 museums provide social media, especially Instagram, as a space to share health information related to COVID-19, such as the 3M campaign, wearing masks, washing hands, physical distancing, and half of this museum have posted less than 3 times in almost a year on COVID-19 issue. The rest were recorded is over 7 posts containing information related of this, and only 3 museums posted serial information about it. So here are 5 interesting cases during 2020. Some of the initiative came from museums that have health collection. So the first one come from Mutantuli Museum for Lebak, Banten. They share about use of rhizome which are able to strengthen the immune system, and they share about the information, the information about the COVID. They report the recorded of the region of the Lebak, Miss Haji Iti Octavia Jayabaya. So the region give a direction and appeal for the importance of increasing vigilance against the transmission and spread out the COVID-19 virus. And the second case came from a Polri Museum. The Polri Museum is a history museum belonging to the Indonesian National Police that has done quite a lot of socialization about the healthy living community movement or gerakan masyarakat hidup sehat or germas. And one of which is making humorous caricature to dismiss the use masks. This caricature, which has responded by a quiet number of followers, not only provide information, but this caricature also provide brief entertainment in the midst of the inconvenience of the pandemic. And the third case come from Indonesia Museum of Health and Medicine, IMERI Faculty Medicine, University of Indonesia. They have a various posting about health and about maintenance and about COVID. One posting is about plague. They share about the plague and share about the COVID-19 socialization, and they share about this clean and healthy living behavior, and they make some program for children. The namely artery program is a learning from museum about health and medicine. And the fourth case come from modern and contemporary art in Nusantara or Museum Macan. They have some program, namely Educators Forum. Educator Forum is an online discussion activity, and in this forum they discuss between educators and across profession. One of these themes rise was for you, for us, inclusiveness and accessibility in art education. And in this edition of this activity, Museum Macan presented a short presentation and heard the experience of speakers in interacting and working with marginalized community, people with disability and underprivileged community. And one speaker that they invite, the name is Anissa Anggraini. She is a deaf teacher, and Anissa shares her experience as a person with hearing deaf disability in teaching art. And the fifth cases is a quite special case conducted by the Museum of the ASEAN African Conference. This museum not only promote in activity through Instagram, but also create an electronic book publishing program for people with disability. So through this activity, Museum Conference Asia Africa commitment to becoming an open and inclusive museum for all people, including people with disability. So they make ebook, a braille, and audio book for a day. Yeah. So during the last year, before the pandemic broke out in 2020, it was quite difficult to find a museum that specifically made health and well-being program. Generally, museums in Indonesia are more passive in this regard. So in general, the service provide are in the form of a visiting service or learning request from the companion of visitor with a special need and person with disability. So this means the service of the program is not an agenda that has been planned by the museum, but rather due to effort of the facilitator for group with a special need and person with disability. So here the case that I found where the initiative came from the museum, one from Indonesia Cancer Museum. This museum conduct exhibition and counseling about cancer. But at the request of the visitor, the museum is often a place of sharing for the patient and their families as a friend. And the others is a mental health museum of the mental health hospital, Dr. Rajiman Bedidarita Pelawang. They provide an effort to socialize the importance of mentoring and therapy for people with mental health to the wider community through museum collection. And the others case came from Anatomy Museum, Faculty of Medicine and Health Science at Atmajaya University. This museum was collaborated with Faculty of Medicine and Health Science at Atmajaya University and Hospital Atmajaya. They create a special program with the title Exploring Your Brain in 2017 and 2018, and a seminar about dementia skill care training in Asia Pacific region, and the summer school of the neopediatric and dementia at 2019. But unfortunately, during the pandemic, this activity was stopped because it was not possible to carry out activity during teleconference. So, very interesting that a participant in the activity are generally health practitioners, family of patient, and also open to general public. Public. So about museum communication is about museum connect a conjunction between technology and communication. So during pandemic, health and well-being issue emerged as part of sudden change in the economic, social, and even political and scientific sector. So the internet changed all aspects of the life, and the internet and the facilities of on it, both search engine to social media and the development of mobile technology are fundamentally new challenges in the management of museum organization. So all of the cases above show that the role of the museum in today's social world is not just displaying work of a structured collection arrangement in its a concept of museum taxonomy. The concept of museum taxonomy is very thick with a face-to-face interaction. But now, through the digital transformation, the museum's social work have become more democratic and adaptive to social life and the development of the social phenomena. So the term taxonomy is more appropriate to describe the new way museum work in the digital ecosystem. So this make the demand on the museum expand. Museum must be able to carry out a social interaction with the community through various media. Digital technology could in fact be a powerful tool to assist in adopting a visitor-oriented approach and to stimulate a two-way communication. So the existence of the museum is no longer measured by the number of physical visits. Today, museum recognize and realize the duty to be truly relevant for the deserved audience, striving to the increase not only their overall numbers, but also the demographic make up the those engaging and with their collection and their offer. So the number of participation and followers who always provide feedback and each post is evident two-way communication between the museum and the visitors. So museum must begin a migrating to a new interpretive framework for taxonomy of cyberspace. So the virtual world in a world that is enriched with information, so it is quite difficult to make information selection. So the museum must be make it clear for all visitors. So my conclusion for this paper: the most museum in Indonesia unfortunately do not aware of their role of the contribute to the quality of urban life, especially during pandemic. And a museum communication skill in the pandemic era must be expanded through the use of the internet while still paying attention to the ethic and limitation that apply to its type of collection art. And as a facilitator of the health and well-being, museums must begin to change their highly hierarchically and horizontal taxonomy communication approach to a more democratic and flexible taxonomy communication approach. So, museum in Indonesia must realize and willing to help society cope with this crisis and keep in touch with their audiences and work to promote access to health and well-being to everyone, especially the most vulnerable and isolated. So, this is my presentation. Thank you very much for this attention and salam musim di hatiku. Thank you.
Please feel free to write down in the chat box, both in the website or YouTube or in the Zoom session. And now, without further ado, we will turn the time over the last presenter, Dr. Isabella Kurnialim. Okay, Dr. Isabella Kurnialim, Magister Biomed PhD Pakar Anatomy, graduated from Universitas 11 Maret as a medical doctor in 1998, and she held a magister program in biomedical science from Universitas Indonesia in 2003. And in 2009, she achieved Doctor of Philosophy in Hiroshima University, Japan. Currently, Dr. Bella is the head of IMUSEUM IMERI at KUI, and she's a lecturer at the Anatomy Department, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia. So please, Dr. Bella, to present your presentation about the role of museums in supporting education and research during pandemic era.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramadini, for the I will share my PowerPoint. Okay, for today, I will have the presentations about the role of museums in supporting education and research during the pandemic. So this is our works done by my team in Indonesia Museum of Health and Medicine, or IMUseum. So first of all, I'd like to start my talk with a study about what is the museum actually. So the museum in a traditional refers to a site of worship devoted to contemplations. So, but this is changing by the time. The use of the word museum during the 19th century and most of the 20th century was symbolized as a cultural building that stores cultural objects that are accessible for the public. And then the museum then continue to respond to the society that created them, and the emphasis of cultural building become less dominant then. So the museum become more open. So it can say it is an open air museum. So museum not only pointed to the building or indoor, for example, but also outdoor, for example, the area also called the museum. So even the virtual museum also now provided, but it's still the opportunities and benefits of this museum also still rely on the collections and preservation and interpretations of the materials objects that by the real museums, of course. And then if we talk about the museum, the role of the museum, actually I try to find that actually the museum has social roles, and talk about the public space actually. So by the time, actually, the social rules also changing the concepts. First, that the museum is the place for preservations of the collections, but then this collection then exhibits for the public, and then the museum become the cultural icon that provide the society with the identity and welfare through cultural stability. And then it become changing, and museum become have a role in educations. So it will encourage the visitors in interpreting what is seen in the museums. Then we can say that first, the museum is like a cultural temple, but now become the entertainment palace, we can say that. And then how about the museum for the public space? So actually, museum is a place for culture and social intersect, and then interact and influenced by each other. So we can say that museum is contact zone, yeah, between various community groups, stakeholders of the museum, and also the users. And also a museum as a public space then become the agent of change in socials and also educations. So here, I'd like to present our museum that actually still young because it is inaugurated in 2017. So by coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of the Republic of Indonesia in that time. So this is our front of the museums. And then we have the area of first is customer service area, and then the lobby here we take the symbols of DNA to remind us that we want to give the heritage through generations. And then we have introductory area, and then we have the medical education journey in Indonesia, and then health education. Actually here, Prof. Moria, we have this idea actually also because we have do a study in your museum also. Then we also have the health education here, and also we give a place for students to discuss. We call the discussions room for students, and also we give edutainment area for children. And actually our visitors increase significantly in the 3 years after inauguration, but unfortunately in the pandemic decreased significantly. So before the pandemic, we do so many activity, not only for the medical schools, but also the range of the age of visitors is very wide. So from the kindergartens, children's, and then elementary schools, junior high school, homeschooling visitations, university professor or guest visitations, and until senior high school and others actually. But during pandemic, we cannot do this. So this is the graphics of our visitors in 2019, and then we can see that here start from the March, and then April, May, June, July, 0. But then in August we can do something. We change our activities. Then we have visitors, but not cannot reach before the pandemic. So what is the consequences of the pandemic actually? So the museum is temporarily closed then. And then of course the income is decreased. Then changes in activities, of course. So we change the strategy of communications with the users, and then we change our program approach like that. And we also this also actually changed the role of the museum actually, because now not only we give information only, or the visitor only come and see, but there is an interactions, more intense interaction with the users. We use online system like that. So we there's a changes during the pandemic, and also for the preparation. So not only in the facilities and protocols, but also the activities of the University Tridharma that includes the education, research, and community services. So first, for the facility, we prepare first, that is we doing the routine maintenance and of course disinfections of the room and the collections. And then we also do preparations of guidelines and protocols for users, stakeholders, according to the rules and regulations in Republic of Indonesia. And then we also do a self-health screening, COVID-19 examination test like that. And the activities, of course, we do in online mostly, but we also do in offline with strict health protocol, of course. And now we are changing in the blended learning. And then here's the changes during the pandemic. I can show you how we maintain our museums, and we do the disinfections. And also how we prepare the guidelines, and we prepare the video for that, for preparing for the new era like this. And then not only the facilities, not only have to change our approach, we also then have a time to do more activities in research. So we continue our research, and because of changing our approach, then we can get big grants this year, thanks to God. So we have a multidisciplinary internship programs, and also we are now doing developing the anatomy guidebooks for medical school based on ER and VR technology, and we got government grant and collaboration with the industry. We can have more than 1 billion Indonesian rupiah for these activities. Then we also do maintenance of medical education. We make some timeline to do the maintenance and what is our target, like that. Then about the educations, we still support the educations, not only for the undergraduate medical students, but also we do a practical session for specialist doctors, practical session for the master program of biomedical sciences for anatomy concentrations, and also for tutorial in the neuroanatomy student organizations, for example, Arpovite anatomy clubs, like that. And beside the education, formal education, we also give the community service as a part of Tridharma of university. We do the education for public, so we routinely give educations for children, for society. So we see that the visitor satisfaction actually depend on how we present the live virtual tour, and then interactive activity with the paper craft, for example, just like Prof. Moria done in Kawasaki, I think. And then a topic of virtual tours, we also have to think about the topic, and then the resource person also influence the satisfactions of the visitors. And then this is the community services, education for public, like we invite the expert and do a talk show, like for this, for example, sports during fasting and pandemic era, for example, we do take the video in the edutainment area like this, and then we also inform it in YouTube, for example. And then for children health, for example, we do make a routine also event. And this is, I will show you the video how we do the community service in education.
Oke, siap semuanya? Nah, ini bahan-bahannya udah pada siapin ya. Tadi yang kertasnya dipotong mana? Boleh tunjukin di layar? Usus 12 jari itu cuma segini doang nih, teman-teman. Dari sini sampai sini. Pendek banget kan? Tapi usus halus kita itu berlekuk-lekuk dan panjang sekali. Hasilnya kalau benar gini ya teman-teman.
Bagaimana teman-teman tadi virtual tour-nya?
Bagus tempatnya, Mam.
Ya.
Seru pokoknya hari ini. Selain seru, juga ada eksperimennya, terus juga ikut belajar.
Pokoknya tunjukin ya depan kamera supaya kita bisa foto bersama.
So by doing that, so we can increase the visitors for public museum in year 2021. So like this, it is good than zero. So and then we evaluate the program. So what is the limitations? That is the internet limitation. Then we think that we have to use the various modality, not only Zoom but also Instagram, but also YouTube that not consume more internet, for example. And then there is a gap in technology because Indonesia from Sumatra until Papua is so wide, and then we try to give a continuations of socializations about how to join the museum activities, for example, and then about the complexity of the preparations. Of course, yes, because we have to prepare the video, the operators, the moderators, the source persons, and others. And also there's a challenge to provide interesting topics. So we see the situation in the society and the existence of national or international events. And then we also take the opportunity to collaborations. And then we also take the opportunity of information sharing. This without limit, because in online system we can make a very wide information. And then how about the income decrease? Then we try to find a solution with sponsorship, for example, and or research grant. And for the end of my talk here, we know that during pandemic, what is the COVID-19 effects? So actually the COVID-19 effects can accelerate the digitalizations, especially in the online platforms. And there is also a multi-channel in use for reconnecting users actually. So the user of the museum become increase actually. We cannot say that there is no visitors come in physically, but no, I think the user, our visitors still many. And then after that, there is a changing user expectation and rules. Usually they just come and see and go home. But now, no, they want to see many things, various things. So from the external stakeholder, for example, to the internal stakeholder for the motivations like that. And also there's a changing in the role of museum experts, because we have to connect the museum as a platforms, to enforce the museum relationship with the users, more active like that. And then there's also changes in the customizing values, co-creation, for example, and network effects. And then by knowing all this, and then we have a good strategy, so we can go to the sustainable competitiveness of the museums. Thank you of my teams. I give the time to Dr. Ahmadini. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Isabella, so for giving the encouraging presentation. So now we are entering into the session which is on the responding for comments and questions from the participants. Okay, we'll see. Is there any question? Or maybe I will start with my own question or consideration to the all presenters. According to the topic of our meeting today about the role of digital museum in supporting medical education in post-pandemic era. I thought in my first impression about this situation. Is it we are already in the post-pandemic era? That's first. And the second one is, if we are already in the post-pandemic era, are we going to do what we have been doing so far in the pandemic era, or we just go back to the old platform before the pandemic era? Maybe would like to ask about Prof. Moria opinion about this, Prof. Maria?
Oh yes, thank you very much. And my museum closed currently, and post-pandemic, I would plan to change one floor to the new, especially for the old senior person and also for the handicapped people. So I was very impressed in the Dr. Mushana's present approach. We'll try to perform. Thank you.
Maybe Ibu Dr. Chiwu want to add the comment from the, Prof. Moria and answer my question.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question, the interesting question, and thank you very much, Prof. Moriyama. Yeah, I think is right now is not the post COVID-19 because in Indonesia it's getting better now, but we still aware and we still worried about this COVID-19 cause, and in museum, I think it's a difficult time because it's a lot of challenge, a lot of challenge, but a lot of opportunity too to make it our existence because museum have a big role to make different or a big change to the better life, I think. When I try to examine all of the museum in Indonesia, I found they have no aware about their role to help other people, especially marginalized people. But I think they're not just aware regarding the survey of the Isabella. Maybe they not some human resources or some budget to do something in this pandemic era because investment in technology is more expensive than offline system, I think, for Indonesia Museum. So that's why we are very sad when we found in their Instagram or then anywhere platform in the media social, we can find can find what else the museum can do. This we only found 5 until 7 museum who aware about the rule to help the other people with disability, with health, with aware about the situation. So it's why we try to examine this problem and deliver to all of people right here to help the museum aware about this rule. And I think IMERI is one museum who who try to make it happen because all of the program in this museum can make us aware and informed a lot about a plague, about a virus, about how to maintain our health, and not only for the adult but for the children. So I appreciate it for all of the I museum to do right now. Maybe that's the answer for this question.
Thank you very much for your very comprehensive and very detailed information, Dr. Chiwu, and thanks for your compliment to our museum. We have a question from the participant, Dr. Radiana. Questions is directed for the speakers. How to integrate more advanced materials from the museum to our medical students? Maybe I would like to ask Dr. Bella to answer this question. Please, Dr. Bella.
This is actually not easy to answer, yeah. So first, yes, as I think I also compile also Dr. Rahmadini questions, yeah. So actually, we are still in pandemic era, I think, and to deliver sharing informations for the society, for the students, I think yes, we still use the online system, but we can use blended learning that's also offline with the strict health protocols. And the challenge also what Dr. Radiana asking, how to integrate more advanced materials. For us, actually, because we have a three-dimensional big anatomy tables, we usually use that table. We modify it to connect with the online system, and also we combine with the video that we make from our collections. And then now we are trying to get the grant from the government, and we are lucky that we got the grant from Ministry of Higher Education from Kedai Reka for the Campus Merdeka. So now we are trying to make a three-dimensional base image, the augmented reality, virtual reality for our student in Indonesia actually. So we try to make, because there is a limitation from our research, there is a limitation of internet in Indonesia, especially outside Java. So we try to make a book actually. So make a book that have we combine with the 3D system that they can use their devices, for example, mobile phone, Android, for example. After they download, then they can use it without using the internet. So I think that is also how we can do or change the approach, yeah, to increase the benefit museums. And maybe Dr. Dr. Chiu, about how the limitations of the financial support, for example, usually we try to use the free platforms. And then, for example, to make the video, we also can use our mobile phones. And then we use the application software, free software, for example. And then we can make a paper craft, for example, like we are doing, and also Prof. Moria has done also. I think that can increase the benefit of the museum for the society, I think, with very minimum budget, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bella. So now I got the last question. Maybe I would like to ask Prof. Moria first, because the question is asking about how important the museum to be digitalized, not only in post-pandemic era, but also in 5.0 society era.
Wow.
Would you like to give your comment, Prof. Moria? How important? Yeah.
I can't catch you. I'm sorry.
How important the museum to be digitalized, not only in post-pandemic era, but also in 5.0 society era.
Okay. My consideration is the medical museum becoming the virtual at the pandemic era situation. So the situation has been changed. The other two people, doctors presented, and our consideration is that it is very important to visit this directly to us, to communicate each other. Not. So we are trying to perform the direct communication with each other in the pandemic, post-pandemic situation. So still keeping our policy. Of course, we have to try. I know we have to try to do better.
How do you manage the problem such as the decreased income and maybe in Japan, do you have any activity?
My medical school is a private medical school. Owner is Dr. Kawasaki. So Dr. Kawasaki is providing everything. So we don't have to payments for the museum. So no income. It's a very comfortable situation for us. But we are trying to make some to exhibit to sell. For example, the pencil or eraser or some shade or something like that. But the income is very few.
Oh, okay. But we are all survive, thankfully. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I have been reminded by the committee that the time is up. So this is the end of question and answer session. Thank you, doctors, professors, for giving us the thought-provoking presentation. Yeah, and I think we have come to the end of our conference. Once more, I would like to thank to everyone who made this meeting possible, and I thank to Prof. Moria, Dr. Chiwu, and Dr. Bella for your very inspiring presentation. Thank you all once again for coming, and I will give.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Back to the MC.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our respected guests and all participants, speakers, and moderators to Concurrent Session 4 of the 6th Annual International Conference and Exhibitions, Indonesian Medical Education and Research Institute. My name is Dinda. I am your Master of Ceremony. Right now, we are going to deeply investigate regarding metabolic disorder, cardiovascular, and aging, especially about vascular aging as a target of disease, from mechanism to clinical significance. I'm going to introduce our moderator, Dr. Bambang Widyantoro, MD, PhD. Yes, thank you, committee. Dr. Bambang Widyantoro, PhD, has finished as the cardiologist in Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia in 2013, and have achieved the PhD from Kobe University. And his current position right now as a principal investigator in metabolic disorder, cardiovascular and aging cluster, IMERI FKUI. He's also a lecturer at Cardiology and Vascular Medicine Department, Universitas Indonesia. Welcome, Dr. Bambang. Without any further ado, Doctor, please welcome Dr. Bambang Widyantoro. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dinda, for your kind introduction. So a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all my dear colleagues. Welcome to our Concurrent Session 4. This is organized by the Committee of Eyes on IMERI this year. And we are from Metabolic, Cardiovascular and Aging Cluster in IMERI. I would like to welcome our all distinguished speakers in this session. So first, Professor Koji Ikeda. How are you, Professor Ikeda?
Thank you, Dr. Bambang. I'm doing fine.
Very nice to meet you.
I actually wanted to join this meeting outside, in Jakarta, but it can't be helped. So I'm happy to join this meeting and present my data through the web conference.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so unfortunate that we cannot help the conference offline. Hopefully by next year, if the pandemic is over, then we can meet directly. And I also would like to welcome Professor Yuasa. How are you, Professor Yuasa?
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to join this excellent conference. And also, I want to go there, and also face-to-face conference is better. But next year, I will go to there and also have a presentation there. Thank you.
Yes, hopefully, Professor Yuasa. And our other speaker will be Dr. Agian Jefilano Barinda. How are you, Dr. Jefi?
And thank you very much, Dr. Bambang, and also thank you very much, Prof. Ikeda, and also Dr. Yuasa for joining this lecture. Thank you very much.
Okay, so in this session, this will be interesting topic that will be discussed by our distinguished speakers about the vascular aging as a target of disease from mechanism to the clinical significance. So with that, we will start with our first speaker, Professor Koji Ikeda. Professor Ikeda is currently professor in Department of Epidemiology for Longevity and Regional Health in Kyoto Prefectural University of Medicine, Kyoto, Japan. Professor Ikeda, stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. I think I have said the pre-recorded
I'm Koji Ikeda
slide.
from University of Medicine, Japan. Today, I would like to give a talk about the impact of vascular aging in diseases, from cardiovascular to metabolic complication. Before starting the presentation, I'd like to thank you to the conference chairperson for giving me such an opportunity to present my data in this meeting. There is a famous saying, "A man is as old as his arteries," that was originally said by Dr. Thomas Sydenham and rephrased later by Dr. William Osler. This famous saying suggests a crucial role of vascular aging in tissue and individual aging. Endothelial cells cover the inner layer of blood vessels and regulate vascular biology. In addition, endothelial cells are actively involved in tissue homeostasis, largely through angiocrine.
Yes,
Therefore, we have been working to identify a role of endothelial cell senescence in various age-related diseases. Today, I would like to present some data showing crucial roles of endothelial cell senescence in fat, blood vessels, heart, and lung disease. Cells are exposed to various stresses such as telomere dysfunction, DNA replication stress, and oxidative stress during their life. These stresses eventually causes cellular senescence. Cellular senescence plays a beneficial role through tumor suppression and limiting tissue damage for short term, but it plays a detrimental role by inducing tumorigenesis and tissue aging for long term. In fact, elimination of senescent cells has been reported to extend the lifespan of mice by no less than 24%. Mice in which senescent cells were eliminated appeared healthy, and the age-related glomerulosclerosis and cardiac hypertrophy were ameliorated. In these mice, these data indicate a critical role and central role of cellular senescence in aging process. To investigate the role of endothelial cell senescence in various diseases, we have generated mice in which endothelial cells are specifically become senescent. To induce endothelial cell senescence, we overexpressed the dominant negative form of TERF2, TARF2, using type 2 or BE cadherin promoter. TARF2 is a telomere binding protein that is essential to make a loop at the end of chromatin. Therefore, its dysfunction causes bare chromatin end, leading to chromatin end-to-end fusion. Chromatin end-to-end fusion induces severe DNA stress, resulting in premature senescence of endothelial cells in this case. We first validated the endothelial cell-specific senescence in this endothelial cell-specific progeroid TG mice. We isolated endothelial cells and non-endothelial cells from the lungs of wild-type and the TG mice, and then assessed the cellular senescence by senescence-associated beta-gal staining. As you can see here, only endothelial cells isolated from the TG mice showed blue positive staining, while non-endothelial cells isolated from the TG mice were mostly negative for senescence-associated beta-galactosidase activity. These data strongly suggest the endothelial cell-specific senescence in our EC-specific progeroid TG mice. We then assess the expression of senescence-associated genes such as P16, P19, and P21 in endothelial and non-endothelial cells. Cells were isolated from the lungs and white adipose tissue of wild-type and the TG mice. Endothelial cells isolated from the TG mice showed enhanced P16, P19, and P21 expressions comparing to those in endothelial cells of wild-type mice. In contrast, the expressions were similar in non-endothelial cells isolated from wild-type and the TG mice. These data further support the endothelial cell-specific senescence in our EC-specific progeroid TG mice. Furthermore, we comprehensively analyzed the gene expressions in endothelial cells using DNA microarray analysis and compared the gene expression profiles among young wild-type, aged wild-type, and young TG mice. I here show the principal component analysis in which the closer means the more similar. As you can see, endothelial cells isolated from young TG mice are close to endothelial cells isolated from aged wild-type mice, but they are distant from endothelial cells isolated from young wild-type mice. These data strongly suggest that endothelial cell senescence in our EC-specific progeroid TG mice is similar to endothelial cell senescence in chronologically aged mice. By using these EC-specific progeroid mice, we assessed their metabolic phenotype. When fed normal chow, body weight and body fat ratio was similar in wild-type and the TG mice. Nevertheless, TG mice showed worsened insulin sensitivity comparing to wild-type mice assessed by insulin tolerance test. The insulin tolerance test clearly showed that the reduction of blood sugar in response to exogenously injected insulin was significantly impaired in the TG mice comparing to that in wild-type mice. Interestingly, we found that white adipose tissues isolated from the TG mice showed higher P16, P19, and P21 expressions, and senescence-associated beta-galactosidase activity. These data suggest that senescent endothelial cells induce premature senescence in adipocytes. We then explored the insulin signaling in white adipose tissues, liver, and skeletal muscle of wild-type and the TG mice. As you can see, insulin signal was impaired in the white adipose tissue of the TG mice, while it was normal in liver and skeletal muscle of the TG mice. We found that oxidative stress was augmented in the white adipose tissue of the TG mice. Antioxidant NAC/NAC treatment reduced the oxidative stress in the white adipose tissue and notably abolished the worsened insulin sensitivity in EC-specific progeroid mice. In summary, we revealed a detrimental role of senescent endothelial cells in metabolic health. Senescent endothelial cells induce adipocyte dysfunction by augmenting oxidative stress and consequently impair the metabolic health. I will move to a role of endothelial cell senescence in atherosclerosis. To assess the role of senescent endothelial cells in atherosclerosis, we generated the EC-specific progeroid mice in which ApoE was genetically deleted. These atheroprone EC-specific progeroid mice were given high cholesterol diet and the atherosclerosis progression was analyzed. Only 2 weeks after the high cholesterol diet, atheroprone EC-specific progeroid mice showed accelerated atherosclerosis comparing to ApoE knockout mice. Both aortic effacement and histological analysis of aortic sinus showed detrimental atherosclerotic plaque, deteriorated atherosclerotic plaque formation in the TG mice. Detailed analysis of the atherosclerotic plaque revealed more CD68 positive macrophages infiltrated into the plaques of EC-specific progeroid mice. Moreover, larger necrotic cores were observed in the atheroprone EC-specific progeroid mice than in ApoE-KO mice. These data indicate that senescent endothelial cells enhances macrophage infiltration and cause vulnerable plaque formation. As you know well, at the initial stage of atherosclerosis, activated endothelial cells express adhesion molecules such as VCAM1 to trap circulating monocytes. These trapped monocytes migrate into the intima, phagocyte the lipids, and become form cells. Because EC-specific progeroid mice showed accelerated atherosclerosis in association with enhanced macrophage infiltration, we analyzed the VCAM expression in senescent endothelial cells. When treated with TNF-alpha and LPS, VCAM1 expression was robustly induced in senescent endothelial cells, much higher than in young endothelial cells. As a result, monocyte adhesion was significantly enhanced in senescent endothelial cells comparing to that in young endothelial cells. The robust induction of endothelial cells was cancelled by helena-rin, that is an NF-kappa B inhibitor. Furthermore, the CHIP assay revealed that NF-kappa B binding to VK1 promoter was substantially enhanced in senescent endothelial cells. We also found that histone 3 trimethylated at region 4 was highly associated with the NF-kappa B promoter region in senescent endothelial cells. These data strongly suggest that senescence-associated epigenetic modification causes hyperactivation of NF-kappa B signaling, and enhanced NF-kappa B signaling mediates robust VK1 expression in senescent endothelial cells, resulting in more macrophage infiltration and accelerated atherosclerosis. Now I will move to a role of endothelial senescence in heart disease. Cardiac hypertrophy and heart failure was induced by acute pressure overload due to transverse aortic constriction (TAC). As you can see here, sorry about it. As you can see here, LV systolic function was significantly impaired in the EC-specific progeroid mice. The fraction shortening was continuously reduced in the TG mice compared to wild-type mice after TAC. Histological analysis revealed that cardiac hypertrophy was enhanced in the EC-specific progeroid mice. Furthermore, cardiac fibrosis was also deteriorated in the TG mice comparing to wild-type mice after TAC. To identify the underlying mechanism, we performed in vitro studies using rat cardiomyocytes. Senescent cells are known to produce various harmful factors that badly affect nearby cells. Therefore, we collected conditioned medium from young and senescent endothelial cells and treated rat cardiomyocytes in these conditioned media. When hypertrophy was induced by cardiomyocyte treated with senescent endothelial cells conditioned medium showed enhanced hypertrophy comparing to cells treated with young endothelial cell conditioned medium. Because raw ROCK pathway is critically involved in cardiac hypertrophy, we assessed a role of this pathway in senescent endothelial cells mediated cardiac hypertrophy. Treatment with ROCK inhibitor abolished the enhanced hypertrophy in cardiomyocytes treated with senescent endothelial cells conditioned medium. These data collectively indicate that senescent endothelial cells produce soluble factors that accentuated the raw ROCK pathway and consequently augmented cardiomyocyte hypertrophy. Excess hypertrophy may result in systolic dysfunction in EC-specific progeroid mice, although further analysis is required to elucidate the detailed underlying mechanisms. Finally, I will move to a role of EC senescence in lung disease. Pulmonary fibrosis is a fatal and progressive lung disease, and most patients are older than 60 years old at the time of diagnosis. We induced pulmonary fibrosis in mice by bleomycin instillation. As shown here, EC-specific protein mice showed worsened pulmonary fibrosis comparing to white-type mice. Mechanistically, we found that endothelial to mesenchymal transition was enhanced in the lungs of EC-specific protein mice after bleomycin instillation. Endothelial to mesenchymal transition causes more emergence of myofibroblasts, and therefore endothelial cell senescence deteriorates pulmonary fibrosis. Our data revealed crucial roles of endothelial cell senescence in various diseases, and therefore scientifically prove the famous saying, "A man is as old as his arteries." Endothelial cell senescence is an attracting target for a new anti-aging therapy. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ikeda. So we apologize for the technical problem, but hopefully our audience can hear very clear in the YouTube channel. So let's move to the second presentation from Professor Yuasa. So Professor Yuasa is currently professor at Department of Cardiology at Keio University School of Medicine in Tokyo, Japan. Professor Yuasa, would you present live or by recorded also?
Hi, thank you.
Okay.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to.
Hi, this is Shinsuke Yuasa.
Okay, please start the movie.
Hi, this is Shinsuke Yuasa in Keio University, Japan. I'd like to talk about our research findings about anti-aging drug screening for vascular aging intervention based on artificial intelligence approaches. This panel shows the number of prevalence cases of cardiovascular disease around the world in 2015. There are about 422 million patients with cardiovascular disease in the world. So this number is counted by the WHO, World Health Organization. The Global Burden of Disease study provides an updated snapshot of the state of cardiovascular disease and reaffirms that it continues to be a significant public health concern worldwide despite impressive advances in technical capacity for preventing and treating cardiovascular diseases. One of the suggestions from the GPT study is for countries to consider further investment in cardiovascular disease studies towards reducing the burden of cardiovascular disease. Despite the global burden of cardiovascular disease, investment in cardiovascular drug development was decreased over the past 2 decades. We think because there are several limitations. There is a reason for the limitation for the study, such as immature research technology for novel drug development, scarce disease models resembling human cardiovascular disease, low success rate to develop a novel drug, the high cost for cardiovascular outcome trials. To develop the novel drug with high success rate, we should apply new technology to cardiovascular research. So at first we focus on the new technology, induced pluripotent stem cells, iPS cells. Dr. Yamanaka firstly reported iPS cells can be generated from somatic cells in 2006 and 2012. The Nobel Prize. This panel shows a press release from the Nobel Committee. iPS cells can be generated from human, including patients with disease. Mature cells, including nerve, heart, and liver cells, can be derived from these iPS cells, thereby allowing us to study disease mechanism in new ways. We can use those cardiomyocytes for cardiovascular disease and cell cells for vascular disease analysis, and also apply to be a regenerative medicine. So we developed several technology for cardiovascular research and regeneration therapy by using iPS cells. We developed the method to generate iPS cells from patient blood cells, and also we developed the method for the cardiovascular cell differentiation from iPS cells. Then we purified cardiomyocyte, and then we plan to regenerate therapy for heart failure patient, and also we developed the method to analyze cardiomyocyte from iPS cells and also model the disease and drug screening. In the future, we apply those drugs to the patient. But there are still some barriers for easy use of iPS-derived cells. So actually, this is the initial step of the iPS cell study. iPS cells can differentiate into any type of cell in culture dish. So at first, we differentiate iPS cells into cardiomyocyte and endothelial cell in cell culture dish, and then we observe the cells. This is phase contrast image of the iPS cell-derived cells. We can identify this is cells, but we cannot identify what type of cells. So therefore, to identify differentiated cells, the cells are visualized by molecular technique. And here I show the immunostaining for the CD31 endothelial cell specific markers. Using an antibody, and then fluorescence is attached to the CD31 positive cells. So green color cell is endothelial cells. This is the same visual field. So as you can see here, this is endothelial cell, but this is not endothelial cells. Actually, in phase contrast image, we cannot identify the difference, but immunostaining clearly shows this is endothelial cells. So to use iPS cell-derived cells for research and clinics, but any labeling technique should not be used to be identified. So we have a question. Each cell type, cardiomyocyte, neuron, and hepatocyte, show identical gene expression pattern. Different gene expression pattern, including structural protein, which suggests that each cell type would have different morphological feature. So can we identify individual differentiated cells by phase contrast image without labeling? So in 2017, we came across this kind of a press release. This press release is from NEC company. NEC company facial recognition system was adopted by major city across Georgia. So NEC's facial recognition software uses deep learning technology and can identify individuals, every human face, by a low-resolution face image captured by a distant camera. So in this system, they can identify human face, every human face like this. And also, they can identify VIP person and blacklist person. So we think this is similar cases with us. We can identify several faces like this, but we cannot identify the several character. So we hypothesize we can adapt this system to several image recognition. So this is our hypothesis. By using phase contrast image of the differentiated cells, and then obtain the image of microscopic observation, we cannot identify the difference in the endothelial cells, cardiomyocyte, and neuron, but a machine learning technology would identify the difference. So although human can differentiate the cell by microscopy without labeling, machine learning identify the differentiated cells. So to use a machine learning technology, we have to run in the algorithm. Machine learning tasks are classified into several broad categories. The type of machine learning algorithm differ in their approach, the type of data they input and output, and the type of task or problem that they are intended to solve. So there are three major learning algorithms: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Among them, we focus on supervised learning. Supervised learning is the machine learning task of learning a function that maps an input to output based on example input-output pairs. To generate the technology to identify cat's face, at first we prepare the cat's face image like this and provide the machine learning algorithm label cat's face to run. Then the cat's image is labeled as a cat and put into the machine, and the machine runs the difference of the cats, and then feeds a new image without the labeling, like this, cat face and dog face, and put into the machine. And the machine can identify this is cat, this is not the cat. This is a supervised learning. So for supervised learning to identify endothelial cells, labeled image of endothelial cells are prepared as training data and put into the machine. On train network can identify the cell type. Endothelial cells are not endothelial cells. So to generate machine learning technology to identify endothelial cells, we prepare endothelial cells from iPS cells. This is a standard protocol for the endothelial cell differentiation from iPS cells. At day 1, an iPS cell condition is changed into the mesodermal induction condition. At day 4, and also condition is changed into the endothelial cell specification. At day 6, we can analyze the endothelial cells from iPS cell derived cells. So this is a day 6 data and CD31 immunostaining. Green color cell is endothelial cells. As you can see here, we can obtain some amount of endothelial cells, but the efficiency is about 20% to 37%. The percentage of endothelial cell differentiation is variable, always different. So we have to confirm the percentage efficiency of endothelial cell differentiation, and more, we cannot identify the what cell is endothelial cell without labeling. So we have to confirm the endothelial cells by some molecular technique like this. So in this study, we adapt a neural network machine learning technology to identify endothelial cells. This is a study design. At first, we have to prepare the target block. We have to define target block. This is an image area to be predicted. This cell, we want to know, this cell is endothelial cells or not endothelial cells. And to generate network, we also have to define the reference block. Reference block is an image area used for prediction. So reference block is sometimes the same block as a target block. But we also change the condition. Reference block is sometimes larger image of target block. And then prepare the reference block and used as an input image. This image is input into the neural network. And then neural network predict this cells is endothelial cells or not endothelial cells. To conduct supervised learning, we have to create the answer set. To create the answer set, we also perform immunostaining like this. And after immunostaining, we obtain the image, fluorescent image, in the same visual field of the phase contrast image. Then after noise reduction and shading correction, we can obtain the clear image like this. And then we binarized this image black and white color image. And then we focused on the target block, same visual field, and then we define the threshold, what white pixel ratio, white to black color pixel ratio. In this condition, we defined 80% in threshold. Over 80%, area of the white color image, this is endothelial cells. Under 80%, this is not endothelial cells. In this condition, we define the threshold like this. We can change the threshold. So here we show just an example. This is the outline of machine learning strategy. First, we obtain phase contrast image, define target block and reference blocks. Reference block is input into the neural network. The neural network predicts this target block cell is endothelial cells or not endothelial cells. And after image staining and binarization, we focus on target block and define the threshold. And then over the threshold, this is endothelial cells. Under threshold, this is not endothelial cells. This is the answer. But in comparison with prediction and the answer, and the network is adjusted to increase the accuracy of the prediction. This is the result of the initial trials. In this case, difference block size is same as target block. And this is the result. This axis is the number of images we used here, about 100. Thousand images we use here. This axis is F1 score and accuracy, and they are the accuracy marker of the machine learning. As you can see here, the accuracy of endothelial cell identification by machine learning gradually improves with increased number of learning images. The accuracy curve shows plateau around 50 to 100,000 image running. So 80% accuracy is good, we think, but we have to obtain a very, very large number of images like this. So we also optimize the machine learning condition. Here we show the input block size and threshold. So we change the reference block size, larger image or smaller image, and also we change the threshold. So this axis is a threshold. White to black pixel ratio. This axis is a reference block size. And this axis is a F1 score accuracy marker. As you can see here, threshold is not so important. Low threshold and high threshold, almost the same accuracy like this. But in reference block size, smaller area and larger area. As you can see here, large area increase accuracy like this. So larger reference image size increases the accuracy of endothelial cell identification, which suggests that machine efficiently identifies the endothelial cells by learning surrounding image of target cells. So in summary, We can identify endocellular cells from phase contrast image by machine learning. Accuracy rate is over 95%. Here we established a method to identify iPS-derived cells by machine learning. So next, we move on the next project. So in this project, we also try to identify the same cells but different condition. So a little bit difficult question for the machine. I mean the healthy endocellular cells and diseased endocellular cells. So machine can identify the healthy or disease. This is our question. So as a disease and diseased endocellular cells focus on aging. As you know, aging is the strongest independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Many stress, such as oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation, induced aging. Aging induces cardiovascular dysfunction and result in cardiovascular disease. There is no pharmacological strategy to prevent aging and aging-associated disease. So we focus on aging. There are many studies focusing on aging. Then we know senescent cells have a central role in aging and aging-associated disease. Senescent cells express several types of SASP, senescence-associated secretory phenotype, and fit-induced aging phenotypes, including immune disturbance, inflammation, fibrosis, tumor promotion, and tissue dysfunction. So we focus on senescent cells. Senescent cells are different from young cells in shape. This is well known. So nuclear size is increased, also depositing accumulation, and also mitochondrial dysfunction with mitochondrial organelle shape difference. And the senescent cell shows unique features such as cellular shape of intracellular structure, including several types of organelle. So, if cell shape is changed during aging, machine learning technology could identify the senescent cells. So this is a strategy of machine learning to identify senescent cells. We prepared healthy endocellular cells and stressed senescent cells and obtained the phase contrast image and put into the machine learning. So we induce a senescent cell by several types of stress, H2O2, computation, and replication. This is oxidative stress, and this is anti-cancer therapy as a drug, and toxic drug. And the replication stress is induced by the just culture. So this is phase contrast image, and we cannot identify the difference in the control and stressed cell. But SA beta galactosidase activity, SA beta gal positive cells is widely used senescent marker. So blue color cell is senescent cell. So as you can see here, SA beta gal positive cells increased by the stress, H2O2, replication stress, and CPT. So other senescent marker P21 and P53 are increased by those stress. So this is a single cell image of the healthy cells and senescent cells. So this is the result. And senescent cells accurately identify machine learning technology. So accuracy is about 95%, and RC curve is very good. AUC is 0.96. This is highly accurate to identify aged senescent cells. People worry about machine learning because we cannot identify machine learning what machine learning identifies the senescent cells. So we show the visual explanation for decisions from a large class of CNN-based models. Gradient weight class activation mapping GradCam uses class-specific gradient information into the final convolutional layer of CNN to visualize the important region in the image. So we can identify the region to identify healthy cells and senescent cells. this is a healthy cell and this is senescent cell. So and this merged image clearly shows that in healthy cells, machine focuses on the surrounding smooth cellular image like this. In senescent cell, machine focuses on the intracellular heterogenic region like this. So this is the difference of healthy cells and senescent cells. So we established a method to identify diseased cells, senescent cells. So we move on the drug screening. Using neural network and senescent cells, we added drug. And then if neural network answer this is healthy, probably this drug cures the senescence in the cells. So this is a concept of drug screening. So at first, we focus on the cellular senescence probability. So we established confirm the senescence probability of each cell. We examine the several conditions of stress, such as H2O2 different concentration from 0 millimolar to 0.25 millimolar. So P21 senescent marker is increased in the dose-dependent manner of CH2O2. So this is the senescence probability. This axis is senescence probability. 1 is senescent cell. 0 is healthy cell. This axis is H2O2 concentration from 0 to 0.25. The senescence probability output from the pre-trained CNN mostly shows 0 or 1 at a single cell level. This suggests that there may not be the intermediate cells and may be the threshold to be senescent cells. Suddenly move into the senescent cell. This data suggests that. So here we propose the senescence score based on the pre-trained CNN and define the overall average output probability calculated by the pre-trained CNN as a quantitative senescence score. To develop the method the drug screening, we have to generate a quantitative senescence scoring. So we generate this method. So this axis is H2O2 concentration, CPT, and passage number, stress strength. This axis is the senescence score. As you can see here, the senescence score is correlated with the stress strength like this. So to validate the performance of senescence score, the effects of anticellular senescence reagents such as metformin and NMN were examined. So at first, we examined senescence SA beta galactose activity by metformin and NMN addition. As you can see here, metformin and NMN reduced the SA beta gal positive cell number and also senescence marker P21, P53, P16 in 4A are reduced by those drug administration. In senescence score, so those drugs reduce the senescence score by dose-dependent manner. This suggests senescent score can be used for drug screening. So we conducted drug screening by using senescent cells and kinase inhibitor library administration. As you can see here, we cannot identify the difference after drug administration, but senescent scoring clearly shows the difference. As you can see here, this is a senescent cell without drug. Most drug-induced senescence score increase. As you know, most drugs are toxic, therefore induce senescence. But some drugs reduce the senescence score. This suggests these drugs may be the anti-senescence drugs. So we perform drug screening for anti-senescent drug. Senescence score is senescence is induced by the H2O2 replication stress and CPT. Training data is used using the H2O2 data, CPT data, and the H2O2 and CPT combined data. So this axis is senescence score ranking. This axis is compound. This is surface plot of senescence score ranking. Some drug may reduce the aging phenotype by drug administration. So we generate heat map image of senescence score ranking. So white color is the senescent cells, black color is the healthy cells. As you can see here, there is an anti-senescent cluster, black color cluster like this. So here we anti-senescence cluster was determined in which the senescence phenotype was predominantly suppressed. So we compound the effects of HIT compound. Here we show 4 drugs: stearic acid, PD98059, dizane, and Y27632. This is a MAP kinase MEK inhibitor. This is a low kinase inhibitor. So those drugs reduce beta gal positive cell number like this. And to examine the molecular mechanism of those drugs, we performed RNA sequence by drug administration, and we found those drugs reduced TNF alpha signaling via the NF-kappa B, and also inflammatory response is also suppressed by those drug administration. In conclusion, machine learning can identify the cellular status without molecular technique. Machine learning-based drug screening system could identify potential drugs for aging. Thank you for attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Yudhara. It's really intriguing, fascinating presentation that we will discuss later. So I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Agian Jeffilano Barinda. Dr. Jeffy is a lecturer in Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics in University of Indonesia. And previously he studied in Kobe University and Kobe Pharmaceutical University. So Dr. Jeffy, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bambang. So I would like to share my screen. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So my name is JV. So I would like to present the future perspective of xenotherapy for aging treatment from basic into the clinical applications. So yeah, after we had the excellent lecture from Professor Koji Ikeda regarding the impact of vascular aging on the various diseases, and also the excellent lecture from Dr. Yuasa about the anti-senescent drug screening in vascular aging using deep learning methods. So the question is, what's next? Is it possible to treating the aging or the vascular aging? So
Dr. Jeffy,
yes?
Can you make the slideshow of your presentation?
Oh, so I already made the slideshow actually.
Oh, okay. So,
okay. How about this one, Dr. Bambang?
Still not working for me.
Okay, so okay, so is there any suggestion for me to screen share, present?
You may stop your share and then share screen again.
Okay. This one?
Not yet.
Oh, it's okay. Still not working, Dr. Bambang?
The committee, can you help us?
Dr. Jeffy, would you please send the file to the Zoom, so we might probably help you to share screen?
Okay, thank you.
So while we are waiting for Dr. Jeffy's slides. Probably we can start discussion with Professor Yuasa and Professor Ikeda. Professor Ikeda, it was very nice that you present about your endothelial cells progranoid mice. So could you tell us a bit that what will be the way to rejuvenate the senescent endothelial cells? Is it, do you have a chance to probably exercising your mice or make a calorie restriction in that senescent mice, or any other intervention after you found the phenotypes?
Dr. Baman, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the final goal of our research, to find some way to rejuvenate or prevent senescence of endothelial cells. But yeah, unfortunately at this point, I don't have any data to show you that even almost nothing, no data I have to find a way to rejuvenate the endothelial cells. But at this point, I am working. So my question is, so as I show the data, I mean, in the introduction, there is two kind of senescence. And one is the replicative senescence, because of the replication, too much division of the cells. This is kind of usual senescence. And the second one is the premature senescence, which occur without the replication, but because of the severe stress. And yeah, and I wonder which pathway is kind of major in the chronological aging, especially in endothelial cells. And I have done several experiments, and at this point, I presume that the premature senescence is the major pathway of the endothelial senescence, not the replicative one in vivo, in the chronological mice. So I now try to find some kind of marker gene which show the robust increase or robust induction in the premature senescence endothelial cells. And I found one candidate genes, so which show the robust expression induction only in the premature senescence, but not in the replicative senescence in endothelial cells. So I now making a reporter genes, the reporter system for this gene to identify the premature senescent endothelial cells using the luciferase. And yeah, once I succeed to prepare the cell lines, and which has the reporter gene for the premature senescence, I will induce the premature senescence using several stress, and then I want to screen some the libraries, I mean the chemical libraries, to find some candidate drugs which can rejuvenate the endothelial cells by checking the expression level of that reporter gene.
Okay, that will be very interesting. Hopefully by next year you can share with us the result.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll check out not the website.
Yeah, yeah. So how is Dr. Jevi? Can you do the slides now?
Yes. So,
okay, please try.
Yeah. How about the committee? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I would like to start now. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, what's next? So can we treat the vascular aging or the aging itself? Is that kind of the science fictions? Or next slide, please. So then other question is aging a disease? So I would like, sorry, so the previous one. Okay, okay, so next slide, please. Just one by one, please, slowly. Okay, stop here. Okay, so Professor Walter Longo, at that time, mentioned this question. How much longer extension in year would we live if we cured the cancer? The 20 years longer or the 25 years longer? So the next slide. Okay, so the answer is only 4 years longer extensions. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, this one. So how much longer extension in year would we live if we cured the cancer, heart disease, stroke, and also the diabetes? The 20 years, 25 years longer, or maybe something else? So the answer is 30 years longer extension. Okay, so this is the last questions. So how much the longer extensions in year would we live if we delay the aging as effectively as done in animal study? So the answer is 30 years longer extensions is longer than treated the degenerative diseases. Okay, is there any next slide? Okay, so the next question is it possible to targeting the aging? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so that's why in this moment, so I would like to present the new era or the birth of the longevity pharmacology. What is that? It's the drugs that directly targeting the molecular aging. So what is the purpose? The next slide, please. This is to extend the health and lifespan, particularly in the human. So this is my outline. So, okay, next slide, please. So I would like to start the first outline. The rationales of targeting the aging. Next slide, please. Okay, stop here. Okay, so we know that most of the diseases are occurred in the elderly population, as we know, like this one. So it means, the next slide, please. So that's why we can conclude that the aging is a risk factor for disease. So that's why the WHO in 2018 classified aging as a disease in ICD-11. Okay, so the next question is, how is not worthy to treat the aging based on the economical value? Okay, next slide. So Dr. David Sinclair, the famous biogerontologist in the world, made a paper that's published here in Nature Aging, and they found that slowing down an aging that extends lifespan by only 1 year is not worthy, or it can save about 38 trillion US dollar. And by extending someone's lifespan into the 10 years, the government can save almost 367 trillion US dollar. So it's very not worthy to inhibit or targeting the aging. Okay, next slide. So the next question is how to treat the aging or to targeting the aging, because we know that the aging is non-modifiable risk factor. We know that from the undergraduate school until now. Okay, so the first question is, next slide, please. Can we convert the aging into the modifiable one? And the second question is how to target the aging. So I would like to mention in the next lecture, this one, that we can find the modification of aging by learning from this slide. For example, this one, so the next slide. This one, so some people may survive until 100 years old, or we can call it the centenarians, the people who can live more than 1 year old. So this is just the minor population that can survive until 100 years old. So what is their secrets? Actually, there are no specific secrets. Do they perform the healthy lifestyle? Maybe not. So judging from this interview. So the other issue is maybe due to the genes that they have that they can living longer until 1 year old. Okay, so the next slide. This one. So that's why maybe we can target the aging by targeting the molecular pathway of the aging or the genes itself. Okay, so is it possible? So we can find to the one basic question: does the genes affect the metabolics? So the answer is yes. We know that the leptin deficient mice will induce the obese mice and also the diabetic mice. Okay. The next one, how about the cardiovascular disease? We know that PCSK9 is the gene that importantly regulate the LDL level. And now that's a drug that directly targeting or inhibiting these genes and can reduce the LDL level and further prevent the cardiovascular disease. So the next question is, how about in aging? Is there any genetic of aging? Okay, so Dr. Kenyon from University of California at that time found that the mutation of DAF2 genes in coelegans or in the worms may extend the lifespan twice longer than the wild type of these worms. So what is the special about these genes? Okay, the next one. Okay, so actually the DAF2, the upper stream is the insulin and IGF-1 like signaling. If we can prevent the insulin IGF-1 signaling, we can extend the lifespan from yeast, worms, flies until mammals, including the humans. So one of the intervention is to perform the dietary restriction. So this is the most established intervention as the anti-aging for extending the lifespan. Okay, the next slide. So yes, so actually there's a timeline for targeting the aging at molecular or genetic levels. So starting from the 1930s, there's that the calorie restriction enhanced the lifespan in the rodent animal. The next one. In the 1961, so the Professor Heiflix found that the cellular also can become aging, or we can call it the cellular senescence, and it's represented the physiological aging in the humans. And as I mentioned before, that the Dr. Kenyon found the DAF2 mutation that will regulate the lifespan in the C. elegans. Okay, the next one is in the 1995 and also 2003, David Sinclair found the longevity gene is the very famous longevity genes called sirtuin or sirtuin-1. That sirtuin-1 not only can extend the lifespan in the yeast or in the mushroom, but also extend the lifespan in the mammalian. Okay, the next slide. Okay, in the 2000s, the National Institute of Aging established several experiments which identify the compounds that extend the mouse lifespan. Okay, the next one. And then the Judith Campesi found the SASP, the pro-inflammatory factor derived from the senescent cell, which affect the healthy cells in the surrounding of the senescent cells. And then the rapamycin was found to extend the mouse lifespan, the senolytic, which selectively kill the senescent cells. And then the last one is the metformin as one of the famous pharmacological drug that can extend the lifespan and also healthy span in the mouse. And recently, the Professor Barzilai made the human clinical trials that about the metformin in healthy and health span and also lifespan in humans. Okay, so what is the impact? Okay, so the impact is there are several study found from the several animals models, and also several genes was found that associated with the longevity. Okay, the next one. So also many drugs were found also associated with the longevity. So it's the impact is the in the overseas, many company was invested about the longevity pharmacology. Okay, the next one. Like this one. So as we know, this one, Google made the Calico company, which that the Google invested around 2,500 million US dollar to invest the longevity pharmacology drug discovery. And then they also invited the Dr. Kenyan, as I mentioned before. Okay, next one. So how about in Indonesia? How about the longevity research in Indonesia and also the longevity companies in Indonesia? Okay, so in other issues, so I would like to explain about the established longevity pharmacology. So there are two main types of longevity pharmacology. The first one is the senolytic, which selectively kill the SN cells. And the other one is xenomorphic, which minimize the impact of the senescent cells. The next one. So we will start from the senolytic, which directly killing the senescent cell by targeting the P16 or the famous senescent marker. So in this one, they found that the dasatinib and the quercetin may eliminate or killing the senescent cell in the endothelial senescent. Okay, and the last but not so but very important issue is the no gold standard of aging biomarkers. So as we know that the P16 and also senescent associated beta-galactosidase is naturally detected in the healthy macrophages. So that's why senolytic is unlikely to fail in clinical trial. So we will talk about the xenomorphic, which minimize the impact of the senescent cells. So as Professor Ikeda mentioned before, that in this situation, like in this paper, the endothelial cell senescence may induce the pro-inflammatory factors that's into the mature adipocyte, and the adipocyte will become dysfunction and will induce the metabolic disorders. So the xenomorphic is not killing the endothelial cell senescence, but instead inhibit the SASP derived from the endothelial cell senescence. Okay, the next. So it's logically possible and very rational. Why? Because it's very natural. So what are they? So there are many intervention like the dietary intervention, the calorie restriction, fasting, the sirtuin or NAD activator, the resveratrol derived from the red grape screen that founded from the David Sinclair, or the nicotinamide mononucleotide invented from the Shinichiro Imai. And in this situation, so I would like to describe about the rapamycin and also the metformin. So the rapamycin was initially extracted from the soil sample in the Eastern Island. So the rapamycin basically used as immunosuppression or also can be used as a coating in the coronary stream. Okay, so the rapamycins may inhibit the mTOR signaling, then further extend the lifespan across the species and also prevents the age-related disease. So therefore, the low dose of the mTOR inhibitions may enhance the immune system and also lower the risk of infectious disease, at least in the elderly population. However, in the clinical trial, the rapamycins was failed, for example, in lung disease. So that's why it's also maybe not so be positively impact that the rapamycin can be translated in the human clinical trials. And the next one is the metformin, which isolated from the Gallica officinalis. It's well known in the diabetic treatments, relatively safe, easy to use, cheaper, and also available in most of the countries in the world, including Indonesia. So in the preclinical models, we found that the metformin may extend not only the lifespan, but also improve the health span in the mice. So by activating the AMPK, the metformin can be mimicking the calorie restriction and preserve the body weight. And also, the metformin can reduce the cataract development, can improve the diabetes problem, the chronic inflammation, and also can attenuate the oxidative stress. How about in the clinical trials? So as I mentioned before, the Dr. Barclay, in the TEM trial targeting aging with metformin, is the the first longevity clinical trial with FDA approval. So he made the clinical trial with the inclusion is the very simple, the healthy elderly, and the outcome is the death or the age-related disease. So hopefully this clinical trial will be finished this year. Okay, next slide. So what is the future perspective on the longevity research? So there's a new paper that the CRISPR-Cas9 and also the partial programming using the Yamanaka vector can restore the aging. And how about the artificial intelligence on the biobanks? It's also important for personalized medicine in aging. And last but not least, the longevity drug discovery, especially in herbal medicine in Indonesia, is very important because as we know that the quercetin, resveratrol, metformin, and rapamycin, most of them are derived from the natural products. So identification of herbal drug screening by using AI and artificial intelligence, like the Dr. Yuasa mentioned before, and validate the herbal medicine in endothelial cell progroid mice on several diseases, like Professor Koji Ikeda mentioned before, is very promising for the future of the longevity research. So this is the next slide. So this is my take-home message. So please remember that the aging is a disease that can be manageable. The second one is the longevity pharmacology research is needed by appropriately targeting the molecular aging pathway, not only targeting the oxidative stress and also inflammation, but also other important molecular pathway. And last but not least, the pharmacology company in Indonesia may invest the development of longevity pharmacology, such as herbal identification. Okay, thank you very much for the attention.
Dr. Jeffy, thank you so much. It's very fascinating presentation. So unfortunately, our session has to come into the end. However, I would like to ask one questions to Dr. Yuasa. So I'm wondering, when we use the iPS-derived cells, why should we not use the labeling process?
Usually, we can differentiate iPS cell into any type of cells.
Okay.
But usually, we cannot get the pure one cells. I mean, if I differentiate it into 8 iPS cells into cardiomyocyte, actually 20% of cells are cardiomyocyte, 80% are not cardiomyocyte. So we cannot obtain pure cardiomyocyte from iPS cells. Therefore, we have to usually purify to the cardiomyocyte. Before that, we also have to identify cardiomyocyte, the efficiency of the cardiomyocyte differentiation. So usually we label the iPS-derived cells by immunostaining.
Right. Okay, so and you show us very nicely that by using the machine learning, you can get the identification of the cells clearly with the higher accuracy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Professor Ikeda, Dr. Yuasa, and Dr. Jeffy, thank you so much for very interesting lectures from all of you. We really apologize for any inconvenience due to some technical problems at the beginning, but however, I believe our audience can get a very widening horizon by your lectures today. And by that, I will close the session. And again, thank you so much for all our distinguished speakers. Thank you so much and have a good day all.
Okay, we are welcoming new participants to this hall. We are continuing to Concurrent 6. This to me is very interesting because since they came with same symptoms and sometimes they overlaps with the laboratory results, and of course, speakers and moderator will explain more and more profound about this. Therefore, we are welcoming Mrs. Betty Ernawati Dewi, Sarjana Science PhD. Okay. Mrs. Betty has fulfilled her educations and achieved bachelor degree in biology in Bandung Institute of Technology. and has unlocked her PhD in Environmental Health and Community Medicine in Tsukuba University Graduate School of Medicine. She is now a lecturer in Department of Microbiology, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia. Without any further ado, please welcome Mrs. Betty. Mrs. Betty, are you there already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, the time is yours, Mrs. Betty. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dinda. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fantastic symposium with the interesting topic in terms of the challenge on the diagnosis and also the management of dengue cases during the COVID-19 pandemics. So I'm Betty Ernawati Devi. I will be serving as your moderator during this season. As you know that the dengue is the most common arboviral disease in the tropical and subtropical country, of course. Like the other region, dengue endemic area have faced the additional public health, of course, and a socio-economic impact on the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, including the dengue research activity that have to change to the COVID-19. And then also the dengue and COVID-19 co-infection also have been reported with the complicated patient management, of course. And the other hand, that COVID-19 pandemic has induced a reduction of the human mobility actually, and also social contact that may give some effect on the dengue incidence. So with us now, we have three excellent speakers in dengue research. First is Professor Andrew Davidson from the Bristol, UK. And then we also have Dr. Leonard Nenggolan and Dr. Mira Sudiro. So you will be hearing a presentation from them on this very timely subject. But before we get started on the subject, let me explain about the rundown of this session. So first, the discussion of this session will be conducted after all speakers give us the lecture. I hope everybody agree with that. So now moving along to our session, please welcome Professor Andrew Davidson, who will be speaking to us on the management of research transfer from dengue to SARS-CoV-2. Professor Andrew, time yours. Good morning for you there from the UK. So I think he already joined with us.
Yeah, good morning, Betty. Thank you.
Morning. Yeah.
You can see I've aged a lot since the picture on the slide that you were showing.
Okay, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thanks for inviting me for the conference.
Okay, so I think now you can just present. So I think you already recorded your...
Yeah, so it's a recorded presentation just in case there's any disruption to the internet. But then I'm, of course, here for question and answers afterwards. Good afternoon. My name's Andrew Davidson. I'm at the University of Bristol, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you today to sort of once again join with Indonesian colleagues at this conference. And I thank the organizers for inviting me to attend. I'll be giving you some of our experiences during the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic in a talk entitled The Management of Research Transfer from Dengue to SARS-CoV-2. So first of all, a little bit about our background and our laboratory. So our laboratory focuses on pathogenic emerging viruses with a major focus over the last 20 years on dengue virus. And sort of over the years, we've worked on and off on coronaviruses, and that's largely reflects the sort of funding situation with coronaviruses, which are really an understudied sort of virus compared to others. So our dengue virus studies and also coronaviruses over the last years have depended heavily on what we call high throughput omics techniques. So particularly at the University of Bristol, we have very good proteomics and transcriptomics facilities. So we've made use of these, and also another platform that we use in our research is reverse genetic platform. So, and I'll be talking about that today. So we use both of these to study the host response to infection with a view to developing better vaccines, identifying drug targets, and as we have with Betty Dewi and our Indonesian partnership, try to identify biomarkers for disease. And in this research, we had received and are continuing to receive clinical samples from our Indonesian partners, so serum samples, from dengue patients with different disease severities, and we've been analyzing these using high throughput proteomics to develop or identify biomarkers for disease. Unfortunately, this work has been really disrupted both in the UK and Indonesia during the pandemic, collecting samples, closure of facilities, changing in lab practice, etc. However, we've switched our research almost exclusively during this time to study SARS-CoV-2. This wasn't just a change we made without any sort of prior knowledge. We'd actually been working on coronaviruses for over 20 years. So initially, when I moved to Bristol, I started working on SARS coronavirus during the initial pandemic. And particularly, my focus was the development of reverse genetic systems and their application for understanding more about the basic virology of the virus, or biology. And I'll talk to you more about this as we go along. More recently, we've also worked on animal coronaviruses, but particularly we've been working on MERS coronavirus. And our studies on MERS coronavirus were also involved in omics technology. So we were looking at interactomic studies, interaction between viral proteins and those in humans and also camels, one of the natural reservoirs for this virus. During this process, we established a particular type of working environment for working with this human pathogenic coronavirus, which was in under BSL-3 conditions. And you can see here we have a sort of a high containment sort of, I guess, laminar flow hood within a CL3 lab. And in the UK, we must work with dengue virus under CL3 containment. So we've been very used to that over the years. And then we added this sort of facility to our laboratory to work on MERS, but also MERS coronavirus, but other aerosol-borne viral pathogens. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we were very well placed to work on an emerging human pathogenic coronavirus. We had all the risk permissions and facilities. And indeed, we were the first academic laboratory in the UK to be able to do so. And we started this work in March 2020, as soon as we heard about the pandemic. And I'll be talking to you today initially about some of the early studies we did, combined omics analysis of SARS-CoV-2, which really depended on the sort of years of research we'd spent on omics analysis on dengue and other viruses, and the facilities we'd established for MERS, which allowed us to rapidly work on SARS-CoV-2. I'll talk about some of the networks and how our work has catalyzed other studies with local and national investigators, and also the SARS coronavirus 2 reverse genetic systems that we've developed that are importantly used in these networks. So as soon as the virus initially was discovered to cause basically COVID-19, researchers, one of the first pieces of knowledge we had was the sequence of the virus, and this allowed different investigators to basically predict the genetic organization of the virus. It's an RNA virus, and it has, as we all know now, these large open reading frames, ORF1A and ORF1B, which are separated by a ribosomal frame shifting event. These encode large polyproteins that are then proteolytically cleaved to give a number of mature products that are used for replication. The structural genes, so the spike, the membrane, and N, and the envelope, plus a number of accessory proteins, all encoded at the 3' end of the genome by what's called a nested set of subgenomic RNAs. So this is a quite unique mechanism that coronaviruses and viruses related to them use to express their genetic information. And if you look at the coronavirus life cycle, the particle contains a single genomic RNA. Once the virus enters cells, that genome is initially translated and replicated, and in a secondary round of replication you get all these smaller so-called subgenomic messenger RNAs, and each of these encodes one or sometimes two different products. So we knew that it was predicted that these proteins were encoded, but over the years with coronavirus it's been sometimes very hard to prove that these predictions are true. So we set about to use our omics platform to see if this was the case. So we received the virus. We initially infected monkey kidney cells, which are a sort of a cell type that are often used for coronavirus studies. We extracted both RNA and protein for these, and in our laboratory we have a genomics facility which has full sort of Illumina sequencing capabilities, but we will also have set up in our laboratory nanopore MinION sequencing. And we have excellent proteomic facilities at Bristol that we've used for our dengue investigations and also MERS coronavirus, so we applied these to the study of SARS-CoV-2 as well. And what we wanted to do was to determine if we could identify all of these transcripts and the proteins encoded by them. And we could do this by direct RNA sequencing, because instead of just getting sort of copies of the genome as small DNA fragments and trying to reassemble them, we can actually directly sequence each of these RNAs. So in these efforts, we were able to, this is a map here, this gives you the number of sequence reads, and you can see there's many more sequence reads for transcripts at the 3' end of the genome, but we were also able to sequence full genome copies of SARS-CoV-2. And this reflects the different transcripts we were able to identify. So we were able to confirm that basically all of the predicted transcripts are produced during the virus replication cycle. We were then able to, using mass spectrometry, so proteomic approach, we identified all of the peptides that were virus peptides that were found in virus-infected cells, and we were able to confirm that particular proteins were produced as predicted from the initial sort of sequence predictions and genetic organization. Now, some of these proteins we couldn't detect. Some, for instance, the envelope protein, we couldn't detect. It's a very small protein. It's hydrophobic, and probably only 1 or 2 peptides would be likely to be assigned to it. However, other investigators have detected that in the meantime. But there's others, like the ORF10 protein, which we and others have failed to so far identify. And it could be that this protein isn't actually produced during the virus life cycle. It's just the transcript. Another very interesting thing we found in our study was that when we looked at our sequencing of particularly the spike gene here, and you can see this is the depth of reads, over a particular region, the depth of reads dropped dramatically, and this region corresponded to a very interesting region in the spike. So as soon as the sequence was initially determined, investigators could see that there was a furin cleavage site in the spike glycoprotein, which wasn't present in other closely related coronaviruses from humans or bats. This meant that the spike protein is cleaved before it leaves infected cells, so it's primed for entry of other cells. We could see these reads indicated there was at least a partial deletion in the spike sequence that we had in our cells, which were, as I said before, monkey kidney cells. So, and I'll come back to that in just a moment, but this study was very important in terms of sort of internationally, and it's now used as an international benchmark because other researchers can refer to it in sort of confidently knowing that the predicted transcripts do exist and also the proteins, and this is in the internationally used GISAID sequence repository. So back to this spike deletion, which has proved to be very interesting. So it appeared that our virus that was sequenced was actually a mixed population. So we took this mixed population, we passaged the viruses on human cells, so CACO2 cells, which are an intestinal cell, and we also passaged them on viro monkey cells. And we did this by sort of limiting dilution. And we found after 2 passages that actually 2 virus populations could then be sort of detected by sequencing. So virus population in human cells with a wild type sequence and those in monkey kidney cells that had a deletion in the spike. So it appeared that depending on the replication in different cell types, there was a preference for either having the furin cleavage site or not. We then took the viruses we isolated, so our wild-type virus with an intact furin cleavage site, or our what we call BRIS delta, so where the furin cleavage site was missing, and we conducted replication studies on a number of cell lines, both human and monkey kidney cell lines. And you can see in the monkey kidney cells, the virus with the furin cleavage site replicates much better. These were just sort of taking stocks of the virus and diluting them and looking the infectivity of the two viruses. Whereas if we looked at human cells, we could see that in some cases the wild-type virus sort of replicated less well than our deleted virus, but generally speaking, the virus with the intact furin cleavage site replicated much better in human cells that expressed specific sort of proteases on the cell surface. So this indicates that it's very likely that in the sort of in humans that could be a sort of a circulating population of some virus that's missing the furin cleavage site, and it may do this to preferentially infect certain cells. We also have been involved in studies with other scientists that show that the virus with the furin cleavage site is transmitted more efficiently in animal models than that lacking the furin cleavage site. So this was an important finding, and it was also important for vaccine studies because SARS-CoV-2 is grown up very often in viro cells or tested vaccines initially in monkeys. So in this case, you know, we could be using a virus with a deleted furin cleavage site. So I just also want to mention our work in context of basic virology. So this really spurned our initial findings. We catalyzed a whole lots of lines of research at the University of Bristol. So we work with many other scientists. So we carrying out many interdisciplinary studies. So for instance, with aerosol chemists, where they're looking at the stability of SARS-CoV-2 in aerosols, also in a containment level 3 lab. We've been working with others at Bristol to sort of test their vaccines, so whether the antibodies raised to vaccines in animals gave a good antibody or were protecting against the virus. We developed QRT-PCR tests, which are used as research tools, and they're being used as other investigators at Bristol, looking at the circulation of SARS-CoV-2 in schools. We work with cellular immunologists to look at the protective effects of the vaccine. And also we've been working with clinicians in the hospital. So this has been a really, obviously in the pandemic, we've had real problems worldwide, but also as scientists, it's probably been one of the most collegiate and interdisciplinary research programs we've been involved in. And this was in part because only researchers at the University of Bristol who were working on SARS-CoV-2 could continue working. So during this time, we had to stop our dengue work, and others had to sort of stop their basic studies in other fields. I should also mention that we're part of a large consortium with 10 universities in the UK called the Genotype to Phenotype Consortium. And in that consortium, our major focus is to analyze the different variants of concern and the mutations that arise in those, and whether they could lead to increased pathology, transmission, immune escape, or resistance to antivirals. And a large part of our work in that is involved in viral reverse genetics. As I mentioned, we have done this for other coronaviruses, so for SARS-CoV-2 and some animal viruses, and we recently adopted a very new method to develop synthetic viruses. So we basically, as soon as the sequence of SARS-CoV-2 came out, we ordered synthetic DNA fragments that spanned the genome and had overlaps. And then we assembled these in conjunction with a yeast vector that was very low copy. So we had a cDNA copy of our RNA virus genome in yeast. So the schematic is shown here. We have our overlapping synthetic fragments with our yeast vector. We introduce these into yeast by transformation. And in a process called transformation-associated recombination in yeast, we were able to get a full viral cDNA clone in the YAC vector. We have our yeast colonies. We then screen those by PCR to see we have the right clones. And then we sequence them by nanopore sequencing in a rapid method to determine that we have the right clones. And we can also introduce these into bacteria to make propagation simpler. So this process has vastly increased the speed in which we can make synthetic viruses. When I first started this, it took about 3 years with SARS-CoV, but with SARS-CoV-2, in less than 4 weeks, we were able to assemble a viral genome, or a copy of the viral genome. So we've done this for the virus itself, and we've also substituted some of the viral genes with, for instance, fluorescent reporter genes such as M neon green, and also we're in the process of looking at lots of mutations that occur in these other variants of concern. And I'll show you some examples of this. The system we use, once we have our YAC or BAC plasmid, we cleave it with a restriction enzyme. We then transcribe the plasmid DNA in the laboratory using T7 transcription to produce RNA transcripts. We transfect these into permissive cells, and then we recover virus. And you can see here we've done this for the wild-type virus. So these are transfected, or these are cells where we've infected with our recombinant virus, and they've been stained against the viral N protein. In this virus, we have it's expressed as a fluorescent marker. So not only does the virus replicate and we can detect the N protein, but we can also detect our fluorescent marker. So this has been extremely useful for, I suppose, some of our drug screening efforts. So because we have now this fluorescent virus, we can more rapidly screen drugs against the virus. So this has been really useful. In our containment level 3 lab, we have a microscope, so we can do this all under category 3 conditions, and it's helping to speed up drug discovery efforts. I should say, in terms of looking at variants of concern, or our VOCs, we've also now made a whole series of viruses where we've taken the original Wuhan virus and we've introduced into it the spike glycoprotein genes from all of the alpha, beta, gamma, and delta VOCs. And also we've produced viruses where we have the backbone of our variants of concern and the Wuhan spikes. So we have prepared all these viruses. We're currently just characterizing them, and we're now going to use them to see if some of the mutations that occur in the backbone of the different variants of concern affect the host response to virus infection. So we can perhaps learn better how these viruses are able to be transmitted more efficiently, or perhaps cause different disease patterns in different individuals. So in conclusion, first of all, we rapidly used our combined omics approach that we'd developed for dengue and also MERS coronavirus. So we had pre-existing coronavirus experience, and we could rapidly deploy that to analyze the transcriptome and proteome of SARS-CoV-2. Secondly, once again, building on our reverse genetic experience with dengue and also SARS-CoV, we could rapidly establish, using a new method, reverse genetic systems for SARS-CoV-2, which are now being used to analyze variants of concern. Our basic studies have also been a catalyst for many local researchers and also researchers in the UK to work on SARS-CoV-2. And never have we worked in a more interdisciplinary research environment. So that just remains to thank the funders, which include both UK and also US research organizations or funding organizations. Also my collaborators at the University of Bristol, School of Cellular and Molecular Medicine and Biochemistry, collaborators at the University of Liverpool, and also Public Health England. And I really look forward to attending the question and answer session and answering any questions you may have. And thank you once again for inviting me to attend this conference.
There's destruction of platelets in dengue, and also suppression on bone marrow, so reduce megakaryopoiesis, and then the result is thrombocytopenia, and thrombocytopenia can induce coagulopathy, and then can induce DIC and severe bleeding and death. On the other side, in COVID, there is a question about the improvement of endothelial lineage. Then also there's the role of apoptosis of platelets and inhibition of bone marrow growth, and then their macrophage activation syndrome. This question still explore right now, to answer this question, because the pathophysiology of the COVID right now not completely clear. Many questions we should answer by research and of us. This is the difference between the difference pathophysiology of dengue and COVID-19. In dengue, you can see that there is the increasing of interleukin 10, interleukin 10. In the other side, in COVID, the significant increasing is interleukin 6. In the dengue, interleukin 10, and in the coronavirus COVID is interleukin 6. The other side also, TNF alpha also increased higher in TNF alpha and tuberculosis factor alpha in dengue, but in COVID there is increasing of interleukin 6, CD40 ligand, interleukin 5, and interleukin 2, which is increased especially in the 5 or 7 on patient COVID with severe pneumonia. The question is, it is co-infection or serology, the wrong serologies. I think I want to speak in bahasa right now. Koinfeksi atau kesalahan serologis dapat menyebabkan misdiagnosis karena manifestasinya hampir serupa seperti demam, malaise, mialgia, PTH, trombosikopenia, dan fungsi hati yang abnormal. 80% kasus COVID-19 adalah gejala ringan sedang yang gejalanya tidak spesifik. Reaktivitas silang antara COVID-19 dan dengue sudah ditemukan di Singapura, Thailand, dan di Indonesia. Reaktivitas silang dapat terjadi karena adanya kemiripan. Ini perlu ditekankan. Reaktivitas silang dapat terjadi karena adanya kemiripan antigen SARS-CoV-2 dan Dengue virus yang menyebabkan positif palsu karena adanya sel bel memori pada pasien COVID-19 yang pernah terinfeksi dengue sebelumnya. Ini adalah studi kasus. Seorang wanita 26 tahun datang dengan keluhan demam selama 3 hari, demam disertai rasa lelah dan tidak enak badan tanpa adanya batuk, pilek, nyeri tenggorokan, atau gejala respiratorik lainnya. Riwayatnya sebelumnya disangkal. Kemudian pada pemeriksaan fisik ditemukan demam dan tes tourniquet positif. Kemudian dari hasil lab ditemukan trombositopenia, kemudian neutrofilnya meningkat, ini pergeseran ke kiri meningkat, kemudian CRP-nya 0,07 dan dengue IgM dengue positif. Sehingga ini didiagnosis sebagai DHEP grade 1 dan dilakukan terapi cairan serta manajemen sportif. Jadi pemberian cairan pada dengue yang mixed infection dengan COVID, nanti kita lihat. 2 hari kemudian, pasien mengalami gejala batuk dan sesak napas, sehingga pada pemeriksaan foto toraks dengan hasil sebagai berikut kita lihat, kemudian dilakukan pemeriksaan RT-PCR pasien dan didapatkan hasil SARS-CoV-19 positif. Pasien kemudian dipindahkan di ruang isolasi dan dilakukan manajemen sportif. Pengobatan pada dengue dan juga pada dengue terutama replacement therapy, fluid replacement therapy. Jadi pada dengue yang diberikan adalah cairan yang cukup, yang bisa dipantau dengan hematokrit dan juga diuresis. Kemudian pada COVID-19 cairan tidak terlalu dipersoalkan. Yang penting adalah simptomatik dan pemberian antioksidan. Nah, ini sebuah systemic review menunjukkan koinfeksi dengue dan SARS-CoV-19 disasosiasikan dengan penyakit yang berat dan keluaran klinis yang buruk. Koinfeksi diasosiasikan dengan mortalitas yang lebih tinggi dan parameter laboratorium yang buruk, yaitu platelet yang menurun, leukosit yang menurun, hipoalbuminemia, protrombin time memanjang. diagnosis dan manajemen koinfeksi yang tepat merupakan tantangan tersendiri karena parameter klinis dan laboratorium yang tumpang tindih. Ini perlu ditekankan, diagnosis dan manajemen koinfeksi yang tepat merupakan tantangan tersendiri karena parameter klinis dan laboratorium yang tumpang tindih. Nah, ini ada satu slide dari orang Pakistan. Dia mencoba bandingkan gambaran klinis dan laboratoris pada dengue dibandingkan dengan COVID, juga dibandingkan dengan TB dan malaria. Dalam hal ini saya coba adalah membandingkan antara clinical manifestation dari COVID-19 dan dengue. Sama-sama fever ya, positif 3, headache positif 3, rash sama-sama ada rash, ada myalgia. Nah ini, cough, batuk positif 3, sedangkan pada dengue jarang. Kemudian sore throat, pada COVID itu adalah positif 2, sedangkan pada dengue tidak ada sore throat. Kemudian diare positif 2, ini positif 1, dan ada namanya chest pain pada COVID dibandingkan dengue yang hanya positif 1. Dan lab yang menarik adalah bahwa terjadi pada COVID terjadi peningkatan laju endap darah, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, meningkatnya laju endap darah, sedangkan pada dengue normal. Kemudian yang menonjol lagi adalah neutrofil. Neutrofil pada COVID-19 itu adalah meningkat, sedangkan neutrofil pada dengue menurun. Jadi ini harus diperhatikan. Jadi artinya selain keluhannya, kita lihat lab-labnya, perbedaannya adalah laju endap darah yang meningkat pada COVID, sedangkan pada dengue normal. Kemudian neutrofilnya pada COVID itu meningkat, sedangkan pada dengue rendah, turun. Kemudian limfositnya itu sama-sama turun. Kemudian platelets. Platelets pada COVID ini berbeda dengan hasil yang kami temukan selama perawatan COVID di RSCM, bahwa platelets itu tidak meningkat, tapi platelets itu justru turun, dan dengue juga turun. Nah, perbedaannya adalah kami lihat pasien-pasien yang COVID itu trombositopenia yang terjadi tidak berat. Palingan trombosit itu jarang sekali di bawah 80.000, rata-rata di atas 80.000. Jadi kalau pada dengue kita dapat trombositopenia yang overt, yang nyata, yang berat, sedangkan pada COVID itu trombositopenia itu adalah ringan. Kemudian ini berdasarkan pengalaman di negara lain diperlukan satu sistem triase untuk melakukan rule in atau rule out COVID-19 dan sebaliknya. Ini adalah 75% umumnya COVID. Pada COVID-19, 75% atau lebih umumnya memiliki gejala batuk dan 25% diantaranya batuk berdahak. Sangat jarang pada kasus dengue. Nyeri tenggorokan dan gejala hidung, pilek, tersumbat, dan anosmia sering ditemukan pada COVID-19 dan jarang ditemukan pada dengue. Parameter laboratorium menunjukkan monostosis pada dengue, jarang ditemukan pada COVID-19, dan limfositopenia serta trombositopenia. Pada dengue terjadi yang trombositopenia berat dan terjadi limfositopenia. Jadi kalau kita mau membedakan ini dengue atau COVID, yang dua di slide inilah bisa kita lihat bahwa sign and symptomnya berbeda, yang menonjol, yang maksud saya yang menonjol berbeda. Saya ulang, kalau COVID-19 lebih dari 70% umumnya memiliki gejala respiratory tract seperti batuk, pilek, nyeri tenggorokan, dan sebagainya. Dan itu jarang ditemukan pada dengue, sedangkan pada dengue yang menonjol adalah myalgia. Myalgianya sangat menonjol sekali, yang myalgia sama pegel linu sangat menonjol. Kemudian para laboratoriumnya menunjukkan adanya monostosis, yang mana sangat jarang ditemukan pada COVID-19, dan pada dengue terjadi limfositopenia dan trombositopenia yang bisa berat bahkan sampai di bawah 20.000. Pemeriksaan diagnostik yang terpercaya seperti antigen atau RT-PCR SARS-CoV-2 sangat dianjurkan. Jadi kita menganjurkan, dari kami adalah menganjurkan pemeriksaan antigen dan rapid test antigen dan swab tenggorok untuk pemeriksaan PCR. Sedangkan untuk pemeriksaan serologis antibody kami tidak menganjurkan karena berdasarkan pengalaman yang kami dapat itu false negatifnya itu tinggi sehingga tidak bisa dipakai untuk screening di COVID. Jadi kami tidak menganjurkan pemeriksaan serologis antibody karena false negatifnya tinggi, sehingga kami tidak menganjurkan pemeriksaan antibody IgM, IgG pada COVID. Infeksi dengue sebelumnya meningkatkan risiko terinfeksi SARS-CoV-2. Meskipun proteksi imunitas silang antara dengue virus dan SARS-CoV-2 dilaporkan sebelumnya, studi terbaru menunjukkan bahwa orang yang telah terinfeksi dengue virus memiliki risiko 2 kali lebih besar untuk terinfeksi SARS-CoV-2 dibandingkan yang belum pernah terinfeksi. Kemudian dapat mengimplikasikan suatu ancaman bagi komunitas yang terpapar epidemi dengue virus dan SARS-CoV-2. Diperlukan riset lebih lanjut mengenai hal ini. Beban penyakit dan beban sistem kesehatan yang lebih berat, epidemi dengue dan COVID-19 yang terjadi secara simultan telah memberikan dampak terhadap beban pelayanan kesehatan di negara-negara di Amerika Latin, tapi di kita juga di Indonesia ini juga beban yang cukup berat. Hal ini disebabkan karena kontrol faktor dan program pencegahan dengue di Indonesia pada situasi pandemi COVID-19. Kontrol faktor dan program pencegahan dengue sebaiknya harus dijalankan dengan memperhatikan protokol kesehatan. Sekali lagi, saya minta maaf. I apologize once again. I apologize, very apologize, because my slide not mostly in Bahasa, and my speaking is also mostly in Bahasa. Sorry, because we have a miscommunication with the committee. I'm sorry for this inconvenience. Thank you very much, Betty.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Leo, for giving us your excellent and interesting topic. So, of course, next we will move to the third speaker. The last speaker will be Dr. Mirawati Sudiro, PhD. So, Dr. Mirawati Sudiro is actually same department with me, from department as a lecturer at the Department of Microbiology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Indonesia, and she is a graduate from the Medical Science Osaka University, and she got her medical doctor in the University of Indonesia Medical Faculty. I mean, so because of the time, Dr. Mira, time yours now.
Menerjemahkan ke bahasa Indonesia, teksnya kan bahasa Indonesia, menerjemah slide-nya, menerjemahkannya jadi lebih repot.
Tapi lo tadi kenapa presentasi bahasa Indonesia?
Dr. Mira, yours?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay, my topic in this last session is about the dengue transmission during SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. I think some of the material already mentioned before by previous speaker. So first we will talk about an overview about SARS-CoV-2. So the pneumonia cases of unknown etiology were first reported in Wuhan district of Hubei province, China in December 2019. And then in January 20, the novel coronavirus was identified as the etiology of the new disease and later designated as SARS-CoV-2 and the disease as COVID-19. And this SARS-CoV-2 is transmitted to respiratory route and rapidly spread all over the world. At the beginning of pandemic, 20% of cases were severe and case fatality rate was over 3%. And the pandemic caused societal and economic disruptions, shocks to health and social care systems, and further severe and broad socioeconomic consequences. But after over 1 year of the pandemic, with the availability of vaccine and other efforts to control the disease presence, over 247 million cases and 5 million deaths have been reported. The CFR overall actually decreased to 2%, but unfortunately it ranged from 4.9% to 7.6%. And in Indonesia, it's still about the beginning of the pandemic is 3.4%. And to cause the transmission and control of SARS-CoV-2, the prevention is, I think it's already a massive propagation about this. So individual strict application of universal precaution for infection control, such as hand washing, wear mask, stay home, and in the community, keep physical distance, avoid crowd, and trans-region travel restriction, and also isolation of travelers, suspect and confirmed cases, early detection, contact tracing from treatment, and in this year, it starts vaccination. But the method of transmission is clear. The method of the prevention also there are already been done, but still problems in the SARS-CoV-2 transmission control, such as is a respiratory route, so it's really difficult to prevent this. And then the transmission rate, and also transmission from asymptomatic persons. And this many asymptomatic cases cause the response during the early phase of virus emergence is in some countries are slow, because there were so much hesitation about this. This is at the beginning of the emergence, and then until now, even it's really impossible to stop human travel across country or region border. So the example is in Indonesia after Lebaran, the case like surged because the people still travel. And then human ignorance. There are also some people don't believe that this virus exists, and also even for wearing mask, we see around us that many people don't just ignore that. And vaccines are available actually, but the distribution is still not merata. So even in Indonesia, maybe in Jakarta is really fast, distribute well, but in the more renewed in the far provinces, there's not that fast. And of course, there is virus mutations that keeps its emerge gene. It seems that still continue. And the socio-economic impact of SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, it's the people stay home, and human behavior also change. Now, less human contact, more remote and digitalized, lost jobs, and the financial problems also continue with health problem. And then in the shift in budgeting priority, and there are many hospitals are designated COVID only, and the facility activity for other diseases reduced, and also postpone of governmental program, and the community health activity restricted. And this is the second part, is about dengue virus. This is a disease characterized with rash, fever, eye pain, arthralgia, myalgia, hemorrhagic manifestation. Actually already mentioned in the encyclopedia in China before 10th century. And after that, sailing ships, slave trade, global travel affects widespread of the disease and reached pandemic proportion by the late 18th century. And dengue has emerged as the most widespread and rapidly increasing vector-borne disease in the world. 3.5 billion people around the world living in dengue endemic countries and at risk of contracting dengue fever. And among them, 1.3 billion live in dengue endemic area in 10 countries of the Southeast Asia region. In Indonesia, first case dengue was found in Surabaya in 1968, and Indonesia is one endemic dengue area in the world. In last year, still 108,000 cases have been reported across the nation with 747 deaths. And in spite of the control efforts, there has been a significant increase in the number of dengue cases over the years. So improvement has been made in case management and reduction to CFR to below 0.5%. From year 15 to 19, dengue cases in Southeast Asia region increased by 46%, whereas the death decreased by 2%. And about the transmission of dengue, in human cycle, mosquitoes, mainly Aedes aegypti, is the vector for transmission, and humans are the host for dengue virus. And in human infections are caused by dengue strains that circulate in domestic and peri-domestic environment. And this transmission is influenced by multiple overlapping drivers, include human and mosquito movement, climate and environment factors such as rainfall, temperature that affect mosquitoes' abundance, and also factor human-host interaction, factor virus interaction, human-host immunity, and virus genotype. Since effective vaccine is not yet available, vector control is the main method to control dengue transmission. Vector control include adequate water supply and storage practice, sewer and waste management system, domestic larvae control, removal of breeding sites, and fogging with insecticides, and also biological larvae control. In community health activity, case finding, tracking, and larva survey have been done. And how is dengue situation in COVID-19 pandemic era? Actually, there are negative impact and positive impact regarding to the what people now do during the pandemic. The negative impact is because people stay home. So also, if around the house there are breeding, so factor and human interaction increase, and also designated COVID-only hospital. This make people not to go to hospital unless they are very sick, and this cause late treatment. And community health activity restriction. Normally, there are like larva survey where human take visit houses of people to control the larvae, for example, and this has been restricted during the pandemic. And then, because more focus to COVID-19 diagnostic, in the early or mild dengue fever, it's possible that the main symptoms are the fever. So the focus to COVID-19 diagnostics, and this causes the underreported of mild dengue fever. And the positive impact of COVID-19 pandemic to dengue transmission, for example, because people stay home, because as we know, the vector breeding is not just at home, it can be also in school or in working place. So if the house is clean, that means that is these people less visiting sites with vector breeding. And also because of the lockdown, there is inter-region travel restriction, and we will see that imported cases in border countries become decrease. Already mentioned by Dr. Leo, there are problems in diagnostic such as antigenic cross-reactivity between dengue virus and SARS-CoV-2, share of clinical manifestation, and dual infection of COVID-19 and dengue, which a challenge in the management. So this is this figure shows that there are, for example, these are the author compare the incident rate of dengue in year 20 to the year from 15 to 19 before the pandemic. And the effect is different from one country to the other. There are countries that ratio before and after is less after during pandemic is less than before pandemic, and also there are countries that increase in pandemic compared to the years before pandemic. So this data is comparing between year 20 versus 15 to 19. And this is the data in Indonesia when we compare the year before 2019 with 2020. In here we can see that incidence rate is decreased for Indonesia, and but the CFR is slight as a whole is increased. And if we see, but its range between provinces is quite wide range. And this is just several example of provinces in Indonesia, west, middle, and east part of Indonesia. We see that in Indonesia during pandemic, in most province, the incidence rate is lower, and the higher case facility rate increasing. Here, it's not all that, but for example, in Bali, this incidence rate increase, also higher case fatality rate. This is how lockdown has a positive impact. That is, this is in China, in the border between China and Myanmar, Laos, and with Myanmar and Laos. Here, this is the case in this area is mostly imported case. So after the restriction of travel across the border, the China in this part imported case decreased, and in this area incidence rate is decreased. This is also in Peru. There are increase of the incidence rate. This is caused by a reduction of vector control measures, suspension of preventive campaign, and mitigation. So in conclusion, dengue infection is still a global threat that need our attention during the pandemic of COVID-19. The pandemic of COVID-19 have positive and negative impact of dengue transmission. Case detection, active control, vector control must be conducted to control dengue infection. However, we need to analyze the data carefully because transmission dynamics such as climate and so on, and surveillance capacity in different countries need to be considered in analyzing data. I think that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mira, for giving us your excellent topics here. So we still have some time for discussion. Are there any questions? So here, actually, I would like to ask to Dr. Leo. So you saw that there is some co-infection between COVID-19 and dengue. So is there any special management for this co-infection, or actually the priority was the treatment for the COVID-19 and then later on we move to the treatment for the dengue?
Yeah, thank you. We treat simultaneously between dengue and COVID. As we know that the principal therapy on dengue is fluid replacement therapy. So we can give the fluid treatment, and also we treat also COVID-19 by giving vitamin and then antioxidant, and also we give an antipyretic, and also if we need, you can give the antiviral. So there is no difference handling. There's no different handling between COVID alone or dengue alone with a combined mix up between dengue and COVID. The management is similar, no difference anyone.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Leo. And I think I have a question for Dr. Mira. So from your presentation, so that in the 2020, the dengue cases is decreased comparing with the previous year, 2019. So is it because really decreased because of the reduce of the mobility, or actually it's decreased because people who have mild disease doesn't go to the primary health facility and then they didn't check whether they have dengue or not? So, is it?
Yeah, I'm afraid that it is also both of them because of the less travel and also because of underreported. Yeah, especially in Indonesia, I'm afraid it is also underreported. So I think in the future it needs to be more active. Finding of the case to make the real number.
Okay, so for Andrew, I have a question about regarding to making the full-length cDNA, because we always have problem in our study. So actually, what is strategy, how to make it easier to get a good result on this, because it's really quite important for us when we don't have the BSL-3 facility for the COVID-19 research, so we can use the full-length cDNA. Could you share with us?
Do you mean you would like to use the reverse genetics system, or just to have?
Yeah, because I saw that you make some full-length cDNA for the study of the SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah. So it depends what you want to use the full-length cDNA for. If you just want to use it for, as a template for cloning, or maybe to make RNA that you could use as a standard, you could use that. But for us, at least in the UK, if we want to recover virus, we have to do it under BSL-3 conditions, which is the same for dengue. And we're stricter than our dengue work. So dengue, we just have an open cabinet, whereas the SARS-CoV-2 work, it's always in a contained cabinet, so the aerosol can't get out.
Okay.
But the other system we have is this, we remove some of the genes of SARS-CoV-2. So we're trying to develop a system, this replicon, which is more biosafe. So that means the virus retains the genes required for replication in cells, and then it can't leave the cells, so it's safe. But so far, we have got that system going, but we can't recover cells that permanently allow the replication as we'd have for dengue, actually. And that's because we think this so-called replicon is cytopathic. So that's something we're working on. But actually, throughout the world, nobody has developed that system. But we think we're quite close. And that could be a good system for like antiviral screening, perhaps, something like that. I mean, in the UK, actually, just in the last 2 days, I think they've licensed some antivirals against SARS-CoV-2 as well. So that's quite an exciting development. And they think because not everyone is getting vaccinated, so if you have the antivirals and you give them within, I think, 5 days of symptoms, they seem to be quite effective at preventing hospitalization.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that you do a lot on the pathogenesis and developing of the vaccine, but you also mentioned that you do study on the how to delivery of the vaccine. So is that any special for the COVID-19 for the the platform that you choose for the vaccine, and then the delivering system that you also conduct in your research?
We've helped in, I guess, so we've been working with Oxford University to sort of check that their vaccine is making all, so we've used once again transcriptomics and proteomics. We've taken the adenovirus vaccine and we've infected cells with it, and we see that it makes all the transcripts and proteins we would expect, so it's as safe as predicted. So we've helped to check the safety in that way. I suppose in terms of reverse genetics, we're basically trying to analyze mutations in the new variants as they arise and see whether, so we've at the moment using reverse genetics constructed these viruses that have different genetic backgrounds, and we would now like to see if some of these mutations result in increased replication in cells, and we think some of the mutations affect the virus's ability to perturb the innate defenses, so particularly type 1 interferon response. So that's what we're particularly interested in at the moment. And this consortium we're involved in, it consists of 10 UK universities, and a lot of the work that's going into it is looking at changes in the spike protein and whether the new variants, as they're emerging, can evade the vaccines. So we've been working with other scientists to do that as well.
Okay, so actually still a lot of things that we want to discuss with all of you in this session, but unfortunately the time is over. So on behalf of the Voice on IMERI committee, I would like to say thank you very much for all speakers for addressing this interesting topic. And I also would like to thanks very much for everybody for joining us today. So for the last this session, I would like to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.